Oh, here we go. Donc, la vidéo, moi,
We've added years to life, but not yet the rights to live. We've added years to life, but not yet the rights to live them fully. Around the world, older people are still excluded from decisions that shape their daily lives in participation, work, healthcare, and independence. Rights don't fade with age. They must be protected by law. The United Nations has decided to begin drafting a convention on the human rights of older persons. This is our opportunity to make these rights a reality everywhere and for everyone. This convention will outlaw age discrimination, ensuring freedom to choose how we live and work, guaranteeing participation in decisions, and securing access to care and support. But a convention is more than words on paper. It's a promise built on voices. Age Platform Europe brings the voices of older people from across Europe to the table. Let's make history together. Stand with us, spread the word, join the conversation. Help us build a world for all ages.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, we've started with a slight delay, but that happens always when technology is involved. Good morning, everyone. My name is Maciej Kucharczyk. I'm Secretary General of Age Platform Europe, and I'm very proud to welcome all of you at this annual conference led with us, turning 25 years of advocacy of Age Platform Europe into action for the rights of older persons. I'm really delighted to at this occasion because indeed it is for us an anniversary. It's a moment when we can look back, take stock of actually of what we have done, but also building on all the achievements, but also remaining challenges. We can plan actually what we want to do in the future. And when I look back over the last 25 years, indeed, Age has achieved a lot. I think we can be proud of our action. Today, issues relating to older people, let it be questions about long-term care, adequate pensions, but also inequalities between older men and women. All these issues, I would say, they are much prominently present actually in political debates. So this is something, and there is a greater attention paid to these issues. But of course, for us, this is not enough. We would like to really achieve a society where all ages are actually looked with the same, let's say, without any bias, to give the opportunity to size actually what aging population, what older people have and offer for our society. So that's why all this question about how we can as well use the current momentum, which is certainly a historical moment, because as you know, there is this decision at the level of the United Nations to set up an intergovernmental working group, which has started the process of drafting of a binding international instrument on the rights of older persons. So this indeed coincides very timely, I would say, what brings us today. We are really, as Age, truly honored by all this outstanding lineup of speakers joining us today. And of course, by the strong participation of all of you here in the room, but also this conference is streamlined online. So of course, we are followed by many people as well joining us online. Maybe some housekeeping information, like yesterday, we've got interpretation. English is channel 1, Français, canal 2, Italiano, 3. I also thought that maybe many of you, you are very active on social media. So of course, if you would like to disseminate and to send any information on our conference, please do it. And on social media, you can use the hashtag HConf26. So that will facilitate, I would say, to gather and to stream all the information about what we are discussing here. Of course, please also note that photographs will be taken during the event. So if you do not consent in using your image, in that case, please let us know, one of H staff. And also, I think we do remind this every year. So it's almost something which goes without saying. And still, we think it makes importance to remind that there is this question of language that we use when we speak about aging. So we would like to once again remind what age has developed, which is the inclusive language about older people, about aging, because we want to avoid any anti-ageist communication. So actually any ageist communication. So we do have guidelines. We consider that words actually they have power. So we use, at least for English, this example of elderly. Elderly is a term which actually refers to only certain aspect when we are older. Not all older persons are frail. Older people, older persons, older adults, this is actually the term. These are the terms that we prefer actually to be used. Having said this, I think that many of you have noticed behind me, there is this beautiful board. So you are probably wondering why we have something additional. So I'm very as well pleased to welcome with us, welcome an artist, Silvia Alba. Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. You are actually a linguist and an artist, and we have came across your work, and we thought that it would be very interesting to have actually a graphic record of our discussions. We thought that that will give not only something new in the way we communicate or we concise way when we try to just keep the essence of the discussions, but also to keep it available for a longer time, also in a format that will be actually interesting and we hope will give something extra to the way in which we keep, as I said, record on the discussions from our annual conferences. So during the morning, we will have, and actually we will be able to see, right? It's a work in progress. I hope that this will not distract the audience too much between you and the speakers. But anyway, you are with us. So again, thank you very much and we are looking very much into the final result. The conference will run until 1:15. We will have a 30-minute break, maybe a bit shorter, considering that we are a bit late. So all this brings me now to the essence of today's gathering, which is to welcome our distinguished guest. And I will maybe go straight forward. You've got as well the program in front of you. Therefore, I'm very proud to welcome, without further ado, Ms. Eva Schulz. Actually, you are a member of the cabinet of to Executive Vice President Roxana Minzatu. The Executive Vice President actually has an impressive portfolio. We discussed this during the coffee. It covers so many policies, including equality, social rights, skills, quality jobs, intergenerational fairness, preparedness. So all these issues which directly or indirectly are linked as well to what we are discussing and what we are working as age. We are absolutely, honored that you can be here with us, and we will be, of course, very much interested to hear how Executive Vice President Roxana Minzatu approaches the issue of aging population older people and how we can build together as well on this new element, which is the upcoming Convention on the Rights of Older Persons, together with the European Commission. So without further ado, Madam Schulz, I pass over to you, and it's up to you to choose whether you would like to speak from here or with the mic on the podium. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maciej. I feel comfortable standing here somehow in front of such a beautiful and full room, full of wealth, experience, skills, and richness in all senses. And what a wonderful introduction to this morning, not least with this video putting us in inspirational spirit and with beautiful designs or pictures evolving next to me. Thank you very much to begin with for the invitation to my Executive Vice President, Roxana Minsatu, who indeed has a large portfolio and a very long title. And she's responsible and working on a lot of topics of relevance for today. And to cut her title short, she often calls herself Commissioner of the People. Of course, you would think that the whole Commission, all the commissioners are commissioners of the people or for the people. And that's true, but I think she has a lot of topics in her portfolio that are particularly important in people's daily life and close to our hearts. So as much as she would have liked to be here today, and she's a keen partner to Age Platform and to your work, I'm very happy and honored to be here. And I consider today a very important opportunity, of course, with your annual meeting, and not any annual meeting, but your 25th annual meeting. But it's also part of a dialogue, of a process that we have initiated and that you have with the Commission since many years, and that should, of course, continue. So thanks a lot to begin with. Indeed, we are always facing important events, developments, challenges, but I think 2026 indeed is a particular point in time for many reasons. And of course, the demographic development is one of the aspects putting a particular angle to our context, which sometimes is described, portrayed, and experienced as challenging, but which should by all means also be considered and lived and worked with as a time full of opportunities. And I was glad that you brought up the issue of terminology here initially, and I make a caveat right away for probably using the wrong terminology or less pertinent terminology at some points. But I think it's very important, not least, that we start and get used to, in all our institutional work, the relevant terminology. I'm also thinking of, and just on a personal note before I go into what the Commission does and still intends to do and needs to do, just on a personal note, I think it's also time that we start changing the tone in which we talk about age. I'm a woman of a certain age who often has to face, you come to a certain age where you need to see medical professionals more oftenly, and you start to forget things. And I for a period of time, I heard so often, it's the age, it's age, it's the age, with such a negative tone. I am a little bit already facing, I hope, many years ahead of me. I don't want to hear that negative tone anymore when we speak about age. And I'm sure that you're facing it in daily life and work as well. I really want to think that we can speak about age as something extremely positive, a wealth, as I said initially, and something that inspires and transpires the foundations on which our societies have been built and continue being built. And with an aging population, we have a lot of that wealth that we really need to cherish and make use of in the best possible way. ways also in our policy making. And this, I think, is where I come to the opportunities that we see in working with a life cycle approach that we try to do throughout this large portfolio and in the different policy initiatives for which Roxana Minsato is responsible. Of course, we have as a framework, and I need to, and I want to start there. Of course, we have as a framework the whole Union of Equality, our responsibility for and our daily work to think differently about aging, to fight stereotypes, to fight age-based discrimination, to rather promote diversity and inclusion. In everything from the workplace to society at large, in health places or housing, what have we. And of course, this is no news to you, but as the Executive Vice President responsible for coordinating the whole Union of Equality and working very closely together with Commissioner Habib, the responsible Commissioner for Equality, we have that framework as a basis for our everyday work. How do we make reality out of the principles, the legislative framework, the policies put in place to make the Union of Equality a reality where everyone can live and thrive and lead fulfilling lives. So, of course, this is a path, work that continues over many, many years, that started several years ago. But I think you're aware that last year when we presented a study on age equality and age discrimination, we identified both important and good measures taken across member states, but identified gaps and opportunities as well, where not only from an equality and values and responsibility point of view, but also from an economic and social impact point of view, there is a lot still that can be done in terms of everything from filling important gaps in the labor market to ensuring that people of all ages can enjoy better health systems and making sure that the trust and social cohesion in societies where we live is something that is broadly enjoyed by all generations, by all members of the society. So having that as a framework where we consistently and continuously need to work on not only making existing legislation a reality, but pushing further legislation. And I think particularly about the proposal for a horizontal equal treatment directive that we've been negotiating soon for 18 years. And it's shameful to stand here and say that we have this beautiful proposal that we haven't managed to make reality yet, but we are not giving up. And we work closely with the different presidencies of the council to still, the last stretch, make an effort to make sure that this gets concluded and hopefully in place. And in the meantime, working on the collection of better data to ensure that we have a clear overview of what the situation is like in our societies, and pushing work through the new legislation on equality bodies that entered into force in 24, and working with member states, with the different stakeholders in the framework of the high-level group on non-discrimination, equality and diversity. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about what we have done so far this year and what is coming up, because I think there is a range of initiatives now on the table, and this is partly why 2026 is a very important table through which we really need to get this life cycle approach in place, where all different ages and groups are truly cherished and can enjoy the opportunities that come in the different parts of society. In March, we presented, together with the responsible Commissioner Mikalev, a strategy for intergenerational fairness. And this has allowed us to take a new approach, or a slightly new approach to the relations between different generations, and making sure that what we do today is of value for those both in in coming and past generations, I wanted to say, but once again, forgive me for that slip of tongue and for not always using the best possible language. Our common aspirations are what is important here. The security, opportunity, and dignity, and a sustainable future for all. And through that strategy, we are establishing an intergenerational fairness index through which we will assess that all different policies and policy measures fulfill the needs for different generations, different groups, different age groups, and fill so that we can fill the gaps in different policies. We will organize a demography forum early next year, and after having thought of a range of different initiatives to move forward on the basis of the intergenerational fairness strategy, a longevity roadmap is the initiative that will come out of this as the initiative in which and through which we can engage in dialogue and joint efforts to really map age-specific policy issues for all age groups and identify strategic opportunities. This leads me on to also talk a bit about the big social package that we presented early May, in which a core initiative is the EU anti-poverty strategy, where protecting older people's rights also means giving them means for a dignified life in old age. And we had a lot of discussions when preparing for the anti-poverty strategy about all the persons that are part of the most vulnerable groups that are exposed to the most serious poverty, of course, but also about the increasing affordability crisis that affects so much larger groups in society, not only the poorest and the most vulnerable. So economic security, of course, is a foundation for participation, health, and well-being, and efforts to tackle poverty, therefore, must be directed not only to those furthest away from society and from the labor market, but those who are who need recognition that specific challenges faced by many older people, particularly women and those living alone or in rural areas. So I think an important contribution to our work comes from this strategy, which takes a life course approach to poverty and social exclusion. And in a work started with the presentation of this strategy should reflect inequalities that are built up through a lifetime, that are not only appearing at older age out of a sudden, but are a result of the lives that we have lived over time. So we will, as one initiative in the context of this work, we will present in 2027 a report on adequate social protection in old age, integrating the analysis of pensions and long-term care. And I would very much hope that that can be one of those initiatives where we engage in dialogue and careful consultation with the Age platform to build in the perspectives that are relevant for all of you. And that we can organize in that context dedicated high-level policy exchanges to feed our work with the experiences that you share from across Europe. In the social package presented in early May, we also had as part of that package a housing recommendation and an updated enhanced strategy on the rights of persons with disabilities, also those acquired over time, so also of relevance, I would say, in this context. And we, of course, have to give particular attention to the labor market, in which who can and aspires to work is of fundamental importance for quality of life. We started this is fundamental to my executive vice president to of course not everyone is part of the labor market and can be part of the labor market, but for those who are and can be part of the labor market, good working conditions so fundamentally contribute to good living conditions. And we started the work on a quality jobs roadmap last year, which continues this year in the work of preparing a legislative initiative in which we identify the different elements that would benefit from a legal framework at European level, of course, in close dialogue and collaboration with member states, with social partners, with all the relevant stakeholders at European and member state and subnational levels, to lead up to a Quality Jobs Act that will be presented towards the end of the year. And when speaking about the labor market and the skills that are needed in the labor market, I also want to just mention 2-3 words about the Union of Skills, the framework for education and lifelong learning that the Commission presented last year. Too often older workers are overlooked when it comes to training and how to best use their skills by employers who consider them, who write them off as end of career or employed or unemployed. Older people are often poorly served in the labor market or by specific employers. So there, as part of the Union of Skills, it's also our commitment and responsibility and engagement to ensure a lifelong learning perspective, ensuring that skills of all ages and types can be fully used at all stages of life. So I think with the Union of Skills and the Quality Jobs Roadmap and Act, this is also two fundamental pieces and frameworks in which we also need to have that conversation about how these initiatives best serve you and how we can all together best make sure that they meet their objectives for all age groups. Finally, the executive vice president is very keen and committed to work on care throughout a lifespan and make sure that the care sector gets sufficient attention for all the professionals that work in the care sector. So she committed already at the outset of the mandate to presenting a European care deal. And with increasing life expectancy, we are all expected to live longer, work longer, but also enjoy rights longer that come with a longer life. Of course, adequate long-term care and social services are fundamental. So high quality long-term care is a cornerstone, of course, of active aging and therefore also of the Commission's work on active aging and on combating ageism. So with the European Care Strategy already in place, we have defined core functions and the direction for Europe's care systems that should be affordable, accessible, and of high quality. We are evaluating the European Care Strategy, and this evaluation will form the basis for a European Care Deal planned for next year, which should take the next strategic steps in identifying and activating the key system levers that are needed to turn the objectives into reality. And here, once again, I think it will be extremely important to engage in a real dialogue so that this care deal is formulated and shaped based on your experience for what is needed and what can be what can contribute, what can be conducive in what we do at European level to add value to the frameworks at national level, to add value to what is already in place. Of course, all of this sounds like a list of initiatives where I'm mentioning a lot of things in a very short time, but everything, of course, comes with a solid process of identifying what is in place, what has worked less, where are the gaps, what needs are there to be filled, and that process always needs to come with a solid dialogue and consultation process. So the European Care Deal will be such a process, and it will also send a very clear political message. Care is not a cost to contain, but an investment in society and an investment to scale. So with that overview of initiatives, both those taken and those ahead, I want to reassure you that the Commission as a whole, and of course my EVP has a keen partner in Commissioner Šuica, who's responsible Commissioner for Demography, but I would say that all the college members have in their different portfolios a responsibility for equality, for fighting discrimination, and for making sure, whether we speak about the commissioner responsible for transport or the one responsible for agriculture, they all more and more think of their policies and work with their policy with an equality perspective in mind, and they all get engaged on the different initiatives to make sure that we navigate this profound demographic, economic, technological and geopolitical transformation phase that we are in, to build a stronger, more resilient, and more competitive Europe, but most importantly, to ensure, to build and ensure and safeguard an inclusive, a diverse Europe where everyone can be who they are and feel and lead fulfilling lives. So by advancing equality, investing, and investment is a recurrent word, not least when we debate and discuss the next multi-annual financial framework, but investing in skills and strengthening social rights and combating poverty, fostering solidarity between generations. I think we can create and continue building a Europe that is not only more inclusive, but also prepared for the future. Thank you very much. And I think you will make that essential contribution to preparing that future here today and in your daily work. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Eva, for giving us this overview of a very ambitious policy agenda. And what I liked, I think it's extremely clear from what you have just said, that there is the connection between the socioeconomic objectives of this Commission, but also you mentioned at the very beginning the Union of Equality. This is one of as well equally important objectives of this current Commission. So actually making the link between how equality provisions through different initiatives can actually strengthen the other efforts of this Commission, as you said, on defense, on growth, competitiveness. So we do hope and count on us to work together with the Commission on all this huge, enormous, I would say, spectrum of different issues that are as well under the let's say, supervision of Executive Vice President Roxana Minzatu. Once again, thank you very much. That brings me then, we can move immediately to our next part of the program. I thought that maybe I would like to invite, we've got next for the next couple of minutes, we will have three actually speakers, two of whom are with us here in the room. So therefore, I would like to ask to join us here on the podium Her Excellency Barbara Sušnik, Ambassador of the Republic of Slovenia to the Kingdom of Belgium. Very happy to have you with us. And then Mr. Zvezdan Pirtošek, the new UN independent expert on the enjoyment of all human rights by other persons. So please, you can join us already on the podium. And online, I don't know whether, yes, we do have, I can see, good morning, Khaled, Mr. Khaled Hassin, you are Secretary of the UN Intergovernmental Working Group on Human Rights and Older Persons, and you are joining us from Geneva, I suppose. Is that correct?
Greetings and good morning. Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Therefore, I would like, of course, again, it's up to you to choose whether you would prefer to speak from here or using the microphone on the podium. So following the program, first, I will ask you, Mr. Pitoszek, to tell us actually, because it's true, it's just the very beginning that you have taken on this new role of the UN independent expert, how you see your mandate, how it can contribute to the elaboration of this upcoming legal instrument, let it be the convention, and how actually you believe that older people can contribute to this historical process.
Thank you. Dear members of the Age Platform, drogi panie prezydencie Maciej, European institutions, Eva, and the distinguished ambassador, spoštovana gospa veleposlanica. Thank you for inviting me here very early in my mandate. And it's really a pleasure being here in Leuven, in this beautiful scholarly city of Europe, to celebrate with you the 25th anniversary. 25th anniversary is a sufficiently long period to observe whether an idea has truly taken root. Looking back over all these years, one sees far more than the growth of an organization. One sees gradual emergence of different way of thinking about aging and older age. Age has helped remind Europe that aging is not merely a demographic trend, nor simply a challenge for pension systems, healthcare budget, or long-term care services. It is a fundamental part of the human experience and therefore a matter of human rights, citizenship, and participation. This may sound self-evident today. 25 years ago, when you started your pioneering work, it was not so. It was far less so. Even today, discussions about aging often begins with questions of cost, dependency, and sustainability. These questions are legitimate and unavoidable, yet they tell only a part of the human story. The other part is found not in the statistics and financial plans, but in everyday life. It is found in the grandmother who enables her daughter to continue working because she helps care for her grandchildren. In the retired engineer who continues to mentor younger colleagues. In the volunteer who spends afternoons supporting people who are more vulnerable than himself. In the neighbor who quietly cares for an ill spouse for years. Such contributions rarely appear in economic analyses, yet they form part of the invisible architecture that holds communities together. Older persons are not standing at the margin of society, waiting to be included. They are already among the people who sustain it. This perspective matters as we enter an important period in the international discussion on the rights of older persons. The ongoing negotiations within the United Nations concerning a possible Convention on the Rights of Older Persons represents a rarely and very, very important opportunity. Opportunities of this kind do not arise often. It's a generational opportunity, and we must take it on board. Eva, Ambassador, listen to what I say it's very, very important. It's a generational opportunity. We must not lose it. When they do, they deserve both ambition and patience. The purpose of a convention is not to create new human rights. Human rights do not begin at adulthood, nor they do diminish with old age. The challenge is rather to ensure that rights already recognized in principle remain equally meaningful in practice throughout the life course. Many older persons continue to experience discrimination, exclusion, neglect, or barriers to participation. Sometimes these barriers are visible. Often they are not. They may be embedded in institutions, procedures, or assumptions that have become so familiar that we do not no longer see it, no longer notice it. One of the most persistent assumptions is that decisions concerning older people can be made without older persons themselves. The convention process offers an opportunity to challenge this assumption. If older persons are to be at the center of the future convention, they must also be at the center of the convention that shapes it. As the newly appointed United Nations independent expert on the enjoyment of all human rights by older persons, I see part of my role as helping to ensure that these conversations remain connected to the realities of people's lives, to the work and wisdom which you've accumulated in 25 years. I'm still at the beginning of the mandate, yet one thing is already clear to me. International mechanisms work best when they listen before they speak. This is why organizations such as AGE are so important. Civil society often notices emerging problems before institutions like United Nations or European Union do it. It identifies gaps between policy and lived experience. It brings forward a voice that might otherwise remain unheard of. For that reason, I hope that AGE member organizations will continue to engage actively with my mandate. I hope you will share your experience, your concerns, and your expertise. I hope you will tell me not only what works well, but also where older persons continue to encounter obstacles, exclusion, or discrimination. A mandate based on human rights must remain grounded in the realities of everyday life. I would also like to emphasize the importance of cooperation beyond national borders. Many of the challenges associated with aging societies are shared across countries. So too are many of the solutions. One of Europe's strengths has always been its ability to learn from different experiences and to build partnership across languages, cultures, and political traditions. AGE embodies that spirit particularly well. Its network demonstrates that solidarity is not merely a principle, it is a practical way of working. Allow me to conclude with a personal reflection. For many than 45 years, I have worked as a neurologist. Much of that time has been spent caring for people living with dementia, Parkinson's disease, and other neurological conditions associated with aging. Medicine teaches us many things, but perhaps the most important lesson is humility. Every patient carries a life story that is richer than any diagnosis. Over the years, I have met teachers, artists, factory workers, scientists, parents and carers. Some had lost memories. Some had lost physical independence. None had lost their human dignity. That observation may sound simple, yet it lies at the heart of everything we are discussing today. The question before us is not merely how we respond to demographic challenge. It is whether we are willing to build societies in which dignity, participation, and rights accompany people throughout the whole course of life, from the cradle to the grave. Aging is one of humanity's great achievements. Our task is to ensure it is also accompanied by justice and dignity. Thank you very much.
You addressed me very kindly in Polish, in my mother tongue, therefore najlepsza chwała. Thank you so much for, I think, being very straight to the point. As you said, human dignity, this is something which should, this core element which should guide actually the upcoming work within the convention, but also even broadly in any policy actually initiatives on aging. That brings me now to you, Ambassador. Slovenia, we all know this, was the first actually EU member state that took openly or showed the support for the idea of a binding instrument for the rights of older people. It was the case already during the pre-negotiations in the open-ended working group, but also now in this intergovernmental working group, another one that will be drafting this instrument. So we would be more interested to know what are your expectations for this process and how this multi-stakeholder negotiation in European Union should look like. And once again, from the perspective of older people, how to ensure the contribution of those who are most concerned by this legal text.
Thank you very much. So you can keep using your Slovenian because two of us also with Mr. Pirnšek, we're from Slovenia. Thank you, distinguished guests, member of cabinet, representative of the executive vice president, representatives of the UN and other bodies and agencies, representatives of the universities, dear experts. I wish to thank the Age Platform Europe for inviting Slovenia to the Age Annual Conference and for the opportunity to deliver opening remarks at this event that we do consider as very important. And above all, I wish to express heartfelt appreciation to Age Platform Europe, and of course, congratulations for 25th anniversary, and for your immense work and leadership in promoting and advancing rights of older persons, including the tireless work advocating for a new legally binding international instrument specifically addressing the rights of older persons. Promoting of the rights of older persons, it's a long-standing priority for Slovenian foreign policy on human rights. For more than a decade, we have been advocating for stronger protection at the global and international level. I can tell you, when I was posted to Strasbourg, our permanent representation to the Council of Europe, more than 10 years ago, I took the floor very often and asking for better protection for the rights of the older persons. And in times of profound demographic changes and a fragmented international system that protects human rights of older persons, Slovenia firmly believes the gaps and limitations in international human rights law must be comprehensively addressed. In March last year in Geneva, as part of the core group, successfully negotiated the UN Human Rights Council resolution that created an intergovernmental working group tasked to draft a legally binding instrument on the rights of older persons. As many of you know, the Human Rights Council adopted this resolution by consensus with over 80 countries, 80, including 14 EU member states co-sponsoring the initiative. Distinguished guests, we have arrived at the pivotal moment. Something Slovenia has been amplifying for years. This is work on a new legally binding instrument will commence shortly. We will actively engage in the work of the working group, of course, both at formal sessions and, of course, beyond. In preparations for the first substantive session of the Intergovernmental Working Group, a call for input was issued, inviting stakeholders to submit written contributions on the framework, on the architecture, on the guiding principles, and other relevant aspects of a new instrument. And imagine, over 200 written contributions have been received by a varied range of stakeholders. Over 200. We welcome such an encouraging response, and all these written contributions are available on the website of the Human Rights Council. It is our firm conviction that the new instrument should duly incorporate the full range of human rights and fundamental freedoms, those already embodied in international human rights law, and those not adequately addressed therein yet. And on top of that, proper considerations should also be given to regional efforts and frameworks, for example, like the European Social Charter. It is instrumental to shift the perceptions and see older persons. This is also what was highlighted by Mr. Zvezdan Pirtošek, to see older persons not merely as the beneficiaries of social state support, but as right holders. Thus, the new instrument must try to recognize the basic premise of demographic change and increased longevity, protection gaps, discrimination and exclusion of older persons. Because we need an instrument that will be more than words on paper. It must be an act of justice, which will move us from aspiration to obligation, provide a strong legal framework to safeguard dignity, equality, and inclusion of older persons, not just in principle, but in practice. However, the instrument should remain flexible enough to enable reaction to evolving aging contexts, which include technological, scientific, and other relevant progress and developments. The European Union and its member states have both a normative interest in shaping a future instrument that reflects European standards and values, and also a demographic and political interests in ensuring that the rights of the world's fastest growing, just a second, all my papers, the word fastest growing, it happens even to the best. The world fastest growing group, aging is of course, don't know where it is. It happens here. I was not expected to be invited to the panel, so I couldn't prepare and listen at the same time. So the fastest growing aging population are effectively protected under international law. A legally binding instrument will be elaborated, and I hope the European Union will be strongly engaged, because early and active participation would give the EU and its member states the opportunity to shape definitions, the scope, the implementation mechanisms, and monitoring arrangements in line with our European values and legal traditions. A visible EU engagement would also send a signal to older persons across Europe that their rights are taken seriously at the highest level. Slovenia, as an EU member state, will continue to strive to build bridges and seek common ground within and outside the European Union. Slovenia, as part of the core group behind the initiative, is committed to ensuring that the drafting process is inclusive, is transparent, and representative of all regions and stakeholders. All stakeholders must work together to deliver. We do look forward to seeing many of you present today here, also in Geneva later in July this year. In conclusion, we cannot overlook a sobering reality. The rights of older persons have too often been overlooked, fragmented, or insufficiently protected. The time has come to remedy this situation. Strengthening the protection and promotion of human rights of older persons must become part of our efforts to build more equal and age-friendly society. It reflects our joint promise of leaving no one behind. If we deny equal rights to older persons, then we deny our own future. And I firmly believe that today's conference is going to contribute significantly to the aims mentioned, and particularly to adopting a meaningful and legally and substantially sound and concrete international instrument. I wish to thank you again for inviting me to address this important conference on behalf of the Republic of Slovenia. Thank you very much.
Ambassador, Her Excellency, thank you very much. You again added, I think, something absolutely crucial for this debate. Yes, there is a critical mass, I think, in the discussions about how we should move forward to strengthen, enhance international standards for equality between different age groups. So here we know that we can count on Slovenia, you leading by example, showing that actually all EU member states do have an interest and I would say responsibility in this process. I think there is no international UN convention that can take really place without a strong dedication and engagement from the EU. Therefore, once again, thank you very much to you and to your country for this leading example. That brings me now to our third speaker. Is everything technically okay? Are we connected? Yes. So in principle, Mr. Hassin, dear Khaled, are you with us?
Yes, greetings from Geneva. Can you hear me?
Because I cannot see you on the screen, so this is why I wanted just to be 100% sure. Therefore, I will give you the floor with maybe a little bit the same kind of a question. Of course, we would like to hear from your from the perspective of your responsibility, how actually you see this mandate of this new established intergovernmental working group for the process, but also once again how older persons can participate, and also maybe looking into very near future, what can we expect from the upcoming session which will take in July. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and allow me to start with expressing my gratitude to all the work Age Platform has been doing for decades now, for convening this conversation, the invitation, and also special thanks to Nena Georganzi and Pauline Parel. I would like also to thank civil society for its continuous interest and dedication to this process. I'm speaking today in my capacity as Secretary of the Intergovernmental Working Group on the Human Rights of Older Persons, established by the Human Rights Council and entrusted with the mandate of elaborating a legally binding instrument. And as Secretary leading the Secretariat, we support the Chair and Bureau to facilitate the intergovernmental process and to ensure its smooth functioning in accordance with the relevant Council resolutions and UN rules of procedure. Of course, as Secretariat, we are also the interface, if I may say so, for all other stakeholders, civil society, most importantly, along with national human rights institutions. Our role is to provide neutral and impartial support to the state-led process, to avoid even the perception of prejudging the substantive negotiations ahead. The Secretariat does not substitute itself to the chair or any member state, nor to the thematic or programmatic work of OHHR, neither to any of its independent mechanisms, who all may have already developed substantive positions on the subject matter. This is really important to note from my perspective as Secretary of this Intergovernmental Working Group. The direction and the content of the negotiations remain in the hands of member states and are informed by the contributions of all stakeholders, including civil society, national human rights institutions, and precisely older persons themselves. According to the resolution 5813 establishing the working group, it will meet for 2 sessions a year. The work of this process will not be confined to the conference room and will continue beyond these sessions, meaning that there will be an intersessional period where civil society engagement can be and will be critical and most consequential. Building coalitions, sustaining political momentum, and ensuring that the human rights of older persons remain visible on national, regional agendas between sessions are critical contributions. Equally important is any initiative that enriches the evidence base, whether through research, litigation, treaty body engagement, or structured dialogue with older persons themselves. It is through that accumulated evidence that states are able to articulate with precision and legal authority what is specific and essential about the human rights situation of older persons and what must therefore be reflected in a global minimum standard. At the end of the process stands the submission of a draft international legally binding instrument on the human rights of older persons to the Human Rights Council. And it will then be for the Council and subsequently for the UN General Assembly to take action. It is important to draw your attention also that these are 2 different bodies, with the Human Rights Council having a slightly different membership configuration and consequently also different dynamics that are happening at the Human Rights Council and at the UN General Assembly. As to participation, right now we are at the very beginning of the process, and the working group operates under the Human Rights Council and follows the rules and modalities applicable to intergovernmental bodies of this kind. Hence, on participation, the Intergovernmental Working Group is open-ended. This means UN member and observer states, UN specialized agencies, and other international organizations, national human rights institutions with A status accreditation, and NGOs with ECOSOC consultative status are allowed to intervene. Beyond this, there are many pathways through which civil society perspective can support this process. And I want to be also clear about something that is sometimes overlooked. Formal presence in the room is not the only engagement possible. It's just one among many other avenues of engagement, and not necessarily always for every actor the most consequential one. As a matter of fact, civil society organizations, older persons networks, national human rights institutions, professional associations, and others can and do engage with the process through multiple channels which do not require ECOSOC status. One critical avenue is through written contributions, and it was already mentioned by His Excellency Ambassador Schuschnigg, the high number of written contributions that we have received. And as many of you are already aware, in order to ensure open and transparent consultations, the chair has launched a formal process to receive these written contributions and to gather all the views on the overarching framework, core principles, and overall structure of such an instrument. We have indeed received this high number of submissions, and it's important to note that this will remain as evidence, and submission. These submissions remain as evidence for the process to go. So it is for the first session as per call, but it is something that will support the process all through. Further, there is also the most direct form of engagement that civil society can do with your government, with the relevant line ministries, with national delegations who will sit at the table position is often the most impactful contribution to make. Similarly, national human rights institutions, many of which have their own participation frameworks within the UN system, can carry perspectives into the process in ways that carry particular institutional weight. Regional and regional coordination among states also create entry points for civil society, influencing a regional group position, for instance, or ensuring that a coalition of states reflect civil society priorities in its collective voice, can have significant reach. Also based on past experience, I would encourage organizations to consider which channels of engagement are most available and most effective for them to maximize their impact, whether that is direct participation under ECOSOC rules, or engagement with national delegations, or with national human rights institutions, or coordination within regional civil society networks. I should also add that for those organizations who are considering or reflecting about applying for the ECOSOC status, it is something that I would encourage strongly as we go forward for this process. The Secretariat, of course, remains available to provide further information on guidance on modalities, accreditation, and the documentation cycle. And I see I've exhausted my time. I look forward to the discussions today and to continued engagement and collaboration with all stakeholders in this governmental process ahead, and looking forward to seeing you in Geneva. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Khaled. I know it looks extremely complicated, the process of drafting of a legal binding instrument. There are procedures, there are all those rules, this question of how you, in your role of the secretary of this intergovernmental working group, you will be, how to say, supervising and making sure that all this is taking, or it's actually conducted in the right way. So it's a huge responsibility. We understand that we can count also on your support, because yes, we don't want to get lost in this process. As civil society, as older persons, we want to contribute as much and as possible at every stage of this process. So once again, thank you very much for giving us the guidelines, and see you soon, because yes, the upcoming session is very soon, so we will have further occasion to meet and to discuss. That brings me now, I know we are behind the schedule. We have initially foreseen to share with you at this moment of the program some actually testimonies, because actually the essence of this discussion is also how to bring actually the voice of those who are concerned by the convention, by the legal aspects, how they can themselves take the floor, whatever their capabilities, wherever they are, whatever the mean of, let's say, communication we can use. But we will move this part a little bit later. So now I will just go straight forward to our keynote speaker. So I have a great pleasure to welcome with us Dr. Lucy Widowiczowa. You actually, you are assistant professor, right, at the Department of Sociology in Masaryk University in Brno, in Czechia. But also you are co-founder of the Center for Research on Aging. And actually the title of your speech is, I think, very intriguing when you say, "Can I retire?" Because you will tell us on your reflections on the 25 years on aging research on advocacy towards the UN Convention. I do hope that you will not retire, that this is the message that you will bring to us. But without further ado, please, up to you, Lucy, if I may, from here or up to, yeah, perfect. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Please accept my apologies for weak voice. You may say that I lost my voice because of the environment, and how symbolic is that? And I want to share a little of my thoughts, and it will be nothing that you haven't heard already or even experienced, but I want to share the journey. And slides will be operated. Wonderful. So I'll just let you know the next one, right? Perfect. But early in my career, I received an email from a lady who had heard about my research on older people. And she asked me, what is your research good for? So I typed back a polite answer about reports, conferences, and publications. And she replied, no, I'm asking how is it going to be useful for my own life, for the lives of older people? And that was a wake-up call. I had been trained to be an academic and actively discouraged by my teachers from ever becoming an activist. But I learned soon enough that it is very hard to sustain when you work in social gerontology and you see your own future in your data every single day. So here I am, 25 years later. I chair the Committee on the Rights of Older People of the Czech Governmental Council on Human Rights until they will dissolve by the end of the month. I represent my country at the UNECE Working Group on Aging in Geneva until they have the finances. And I lead some of the largest global research networks in the field until I have time because of my informal career of obligations. So I have been busy the last 25 years, and so was the Age platform. And that gives us both the right to ask out loud, are older people actually better off than they were when we started? The next slide, please. These photographs were taken in Madrid in 2002 at the Second World Assembly on Aging. I was a young researcher who had no business being in the same room as all the politicians and experts and Robert Beckler, the man who coined the word ageism and spent the rest of his life turning a concept into a movement. I remember thinking, sorry, that's my glasses. Technologies again. I remember thinking this is what it looks like when research becomes responsibility. 24 years later, ageism is mentioned in EU strategies, in government resolutions, in human rights framework. Butler's word traveled far. But words can travel without changing anything. Have we moved from language to action, from naming the problem to making it right? Are we on a safe ground? Can we retire our campaigns, our actions, or as my kids in the car always ask me, are we there yet? Next slide, please. Because the data are merciless. Our 2024 ageism survey tells a story that this is not one of progress. Discrimination on basis of age is not declining. It is more visible, more reported, and more embedded in institutional structures than when we started measuring it. Next slide, please. And this is usually comes as a surprise. It is not only older people who experience it. Ageism runs in both directions. Younger people face it too, in hiring, in housing, in how seriously their voices are taken. And the young people here today are the older people of tomorrow. The discrimination we fail to stop today is the discrimination they, or we, will feel and live with. It is not a seniors issue. It is a human rights issue with a long timeline. Ageism is not a feeling, it is a structural failure. And structural failures require structural solutions. And this is precisely where what the convention provides. On the next slides, our survey data on violence and elder abuse in community and in institutional settings are not comfortable reading. A significant share of older people in communities report their experiences, and care workers report witnessing abuse of older residents, psychological, physical, financial, sexual, structural. Elder abuse is invisible not because it's rare, but because we have built systems that make it easy to ignore. A convention would create mandatory protection frameworks and establish right to freedom from abuse as a human right, not a service standard. It would make the tolerated intolerable. On the next slide, I have a question. We ask today very often. Yes. Oh, wait, I will. Thank you so much. That's my ADHD in it. The question, why don't older people use digital technologies? That is another question we often ask today, of which we're ignorant 25 years ago. Our survey on Czech adults age 60 and above gives a clear answer. It is not incapacity. More older non-users have made a deliberate choice. They have lived full, well-organized lives without digital technology. They are not failing to digitize. They are declining to. If we treat this as a failure, we design interventions that are condescending and ineffective. If we treat it as a legitimate lifestyle choice, we are asked to force the harder question. Are we building digital public services that structurally exclude older citizens and then blaming them for being excluded? Digital inclusions cannot mean digital compulsion. A convention should protect the rights to access services throughout digital means and underline also the need to continue education, because even today's younger people will be outdated towards the newest technologies that are coming in the future, and today don't have name or usage yet, just maybe in the sci-fi movies. On the next slide, I share another story about demographic paradox. Whether a country has a 40% of its population over 65, like parts of Japan, or 16, like in the United Arab Emirates in 2050 projection, the political responses tend to be the same, regardless of the number. Just alarm. The Great Tsunami, the Silver Time Bombs. We heard this language in 1995 already, and it's back now, louder, and spiced with something new. Rising nationalism that frames demographic change not just as an economic problem, but a civilizational crisis. This rhetoric doesn't describe a problem, it creates one. It frames older people as a cost rather than citizens with rights. And we have seen this film before. The question is now how many people, it's not the question, sorry, how many people a society can afford. It is what kind of society we want to be. On average, on the next slide, older people today are healthier, better educated, and more financially secured than any previous generation. By almost all measurable indicators, later life is better than it has ever been. And yet, the world we are aging into is becoming more hostile. Climate change kills in heat waves, in floods, in slow erosion of family environments of older people. Geopolitical instability has shown how quickly older people become invisible in crisis responses. Last to be evacuated, first to be deprioritized. Wars, climate change, and social exclusion are robbing us of our longevity, taking away our right to live long and prosperous lives. Average also makes radical or erases the radical heterogeneity. It conceals that pull through every category we have built. We also have to recognize that people who live at the intersections of age, poverty, migration, disability, and many more. The difference between where we are and where we should be, it's not a gap in knowledge. It is a gap in obligation, and that is what Convention wants to close. So can I retire now? The woman who emailed me early in my career, the one who asked me what my research was good for her own life, she was right to ask, and she is still right. 25 years ago, I made her a silent, quiet promise. The evidence would become policy. The policy would become rights. The rights would become eventually a life lived safely, protected from discrimination and harm, free of alarmist news feeds, life lived with dignity, life where her voice matters. Nothing about us without us is not a slogan, it is a methodology. Next slide, please. Ageism, inadequate care, rights denied. These are not individual misfortunes, they are structural failures. The society we build today is the one that we will age into tomorrow. And we are not there yet. The convention is not signed. The averages still lie. So no, I cannot retire, not yet. But I can stand here and say we are closer than we were. The language exists, the evidence exists, the political moment, fragile as it is, exists. What remains is the courage to finish what we started. A convention on the rights of older persons is not distant ambition, it is long overdue obligation, and we are the generation that could deliver it. So our responsibility for our own future and the goal for the convention, a society where no one does need to be afraid to grow old. So happy aging to all of us.
Thank you very much. I think your last slide says another essential element for our discussion. We are not talking here about individual misfortunes. We are talking about structural failures. And this is what actually the convention, any actually new initiatives, policy processes, but actually, yes, concrete solutions, this is what they need actually to address these structural actually failures. And also you reminded us, it's true, Robert Butler, the American researcher who coined actually term of ageism, when he did it more than now 50 years ago, right? He spoke directly, it's true, it was not only about old age, it was also ageism, can go in both directions. We as age are very conscious of, in our strategic thinking, that it is a question of age equality throughout life. We are very much also looking at the inequalities and difficulties that younger generation face today. And also, as you said, younger people of today, there are future older peoples. Thank you once again for your keynote speech. And yes, we are reassured you are not retiring, so we can actually count on this cooperation, also input from research to the upcoming work around the convention. Now, having said this, we move time to then follow with the first roundtable, from grassroots voices to global norms. I have a great pleasure to hand over actually to my compatriot, which is always extremely nice, but it is not our, let's say, affinity of our nationality which matters. Anna Jabiera, you are actually work at the Office of the Commissioner of Human Rights in Poland. You also represent the European Network of National Human Rights Institutions and in the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions Working Group. So again, very happy to have you as the moderator. You know us, we know you. That's why we've asked you for this important role, and you will then introduce the speakers and moderate this session. Over to you, Anna. Thank you so much.
Hello, can you hear me with the mic? Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it's great we will have the panel together about the participation of older persons in different processes, and also about how AI can enhance citizen and older persons' participation. And I will start with introducing our panelists, our speakers. It's my great pleasure to introduce Miguel Ángel Cabra de Luna, who has great experience in social economy, social affairs, and human rights. He represents the platform of older people and pensioners, PMP Spain, and he is now a member of the board of directors of Age Platform Europe and member of the board of Spanish Social Economy, among others roles. Second speaker is Chris Seroyen, who has a long career in the Belgian Trade Union Confederation, ACV-CSC, and now he is active as a volunteer in OCRA, a Belgian seniors organization, and he is a judge in social affairs in the Antwerp Labour Court. And it's a great pleasure also to introduce Dr. Caroline Emmer de Albuquerque Green, who is a director of research and head of public engagement at the Institute of Ethics in AI at the University of Oxford. And we'll have a first round of questions, but actually, because Caroline will need to leave us sooner, so we will start with Caroline and with the question to Caroline. And so my first question actually would be then, how can digital and AI-based participation tools be used to ensure inclusive, ethical, and meaningful participation of older persons? Can you perhaps share successful examples of citizens' consultations or research projects that we can learn from? Caroline, over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations to Age Platform Europe for this event, for convening us, for all your incredible work. And I do, first of all, I'm very grateful for being able to be online, but as you just mentioned, I will have to rush off as I have to make my way to the airport. So I'm sorry about that, but I know that there's some more people in the room who know about this work and who hopefully will be able to answer any questions. So let me just answer the question you just posed me. I'd like to say the Convention on the Rights of Older Persons is the first convention to be drafted in the new age of AI that we're in now. And while tech and AI will likely play a really big role in the content of the convention itself, at least that's what I'm hoping, AI at this stage presents a really important opportunity to engage older persons and their community around the world in the drafting process. So AI-enabled participation platforms can collect and amplify grassroots voices at scale and depth, and that's way beyond the more traditional consultation methods. So the opportunity is that when done well, and I want to underscore that, AI can actually lower barriers that have historically kept older people out of consultations, such as language barriers, mobility, the complexity or distances. Of course, these tools and methods must be designed with older persons in mind right from the start and not as an afterthought. And the risk is that these tools simply will replicate existing exclusions and ageism at scale. And we heard some of these concerns in the previous keynote too. So let me give you an example when AI has played an important role for civic participation quite recently, and then talk a little bit about the need for ethical design and any methods for to inform the convention. So one example would be Engaged California, which was all about the LA wildfires recovery. So following the devastating Palisades and Eaton fires in January 2025, California launched Engaged California, a government-run deliberative democracy platform. So what did it do? Over 3,000 community members participated across several months in a structured digital deliberation on wildfire recovery priorities. AI tools synthesized the long-form, detailed public comments into a policy action plan that explicitly traced back to the underlying public voice, meaning participants could actually see their input reflected in outcomes. And that's very important, is whenever we hear people's voices, it only becomes meaningful when you actually see action coming out of it and policy inputs coming out of it. The platform was available in 8 languages, and the state partnered with the City of LA, LA County, and community organizations to reach people who were harder to access otherwise and who lacked digital access. So why did this particular example also matter to older persons in that region? Older residents in Altadena, a predominantly senior community, were among the most severely affected by the fires and explicitly raised their needs on the platform. The hybrid outreach model, combining digital platform with community partnerships, enabled participation from people who might not have engaged through a web form alone, who otherwise would have not heard. AI synthesis ensured that qualitative, narrative testimony from older residents carried equal analytical weight as structured responses and wasn't just lost in a pile of submissions, as often we will see. So there are many more examples like this. However, we have to be really mindful that AI is a very emotional and loaded topic. And I often see that when I come into the room and talk about the potential of AI, and specifically in the realm of older people. And of course, older people are still digitally excluded in many places around the world. So this raises important ethical considerations for digital participation to be inclusive, ethical and meaningful for older people and the people around them. And some of the principles, and 3 principles that really matter when using such a methodology, is first of all a hybrid design. So digital tools must complement and not replace in-person and, for example, telephone engagement, and older adults participate across a wide spectrum of digital fluency. So any platforms must really meet people where they are. And some of these examples that I could talk about, for example, in Taiwan, are actually using the technology through text messages on phones. So it's easier for people to work with. A second principle is that AI is a synthesis tool and not a gatekeeper to hearing people's in-depth stories. So a promising use of AI in participation is to synthesize these large volumes of diverse inputs into structured recommendations. And this makes every contribution legible to policymakers, including those from people who might write less formally or at length. But qualitative data still matters, and the individual stories of people must not be lost. And third, community organizations are incredibly important here. Government platforms alone will not reach isolated older adults or any AI tech platform. Partnerships with trusted local intermediaries like senior centers, faith communities, health services are essential to equitable reach. So the question is not really whether to use AI tools in this drafting process for the new Convention on the Rights of Older People, but how to use them responsibly so that older persons are not just subject to this convention, but active voices in shaping it far beyond of what we're seeing right now. Of course, these tools must be designed with older persons in mind from the start. And I'm really excited to say that in the past 6 months or even longer, many of the people who are actually present at this conference and beyond have shaped a project that will be using AI in the first pilot phase together with the Global Alliance on the Rights of Older People and local partners to use AI and participative tools to inform the drafting process on the Convention on the Rights of Older Persons. And we will have a kickoff workshop in October at the University of Oxford to start this off. And what's really important about this project is that it has been co-produced right from the start with the concerns of older people and their communities in mind, and with people working with experts like Ambassador Audrey Tang from Taiwan, who are very experienced and have got the expertise in working with these civic AI platform as we call them. So thank you very much for giving me the floor first. And I am very sorry that I will drop out very soon, but I wish you all the very best for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I think it's so crucial to be up to date and to know how, at which stage the discussion about the use of artificial intelligence in the process of consultations is at the moment. And thank you for sharing. Safe flight. And now we go back to the room. I would like to ask, maybe before I will go with questions, because we are running out of time, there will be no Q&A after this panel, as I've heard, but please collect your thoughts, because you will exchange it during the coffee break, and maybe there will be time afterwards. And participation is such a crucial part of this whole discussion, how to improve it, how to really use this opportunity. So I just would like to encourage you to think of it. And now I go with questions to the speakers. And well, Angel Cabra de Luna, there is a question for you. What is your experience in Spain from engaging with consultative body established by Immerso? Who is involved? What is your role, and what lessons could be learned? Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to stay here with us in this General Assembly. I try to be brief in my answers. The experience has been very positive in my point of view. We have experience, before experience of the negotiation of the Convention for Disabled People. I was very inside the team which prepared the Spanish works in this issue. But anyway, the government established a consultative body, was established in October 25, and we meet every 2 months, holding discussions prior to the Geneva Intergovernmental Working Group to prepare the Spanish position. Who participates? First, senior officials from the civil service, high civil servants, particularly from the social administration, INSERSO, which is the competent body for senior citizens, persons coming from the Ministry of foreign affairs, the specialists in human rights, technical representatives from associations of senior citizens, like the Platform of Seniors and Pensioners, and people with disabilities, which CERMI, which has their experience also, as well as human rights specialists from academia. I mean, Nina Georgiansi, who is with us here, is member of this consultative body. We propose, like the platform of the older people and pensioners, PMP in Spanish, to be member, and the public administration accept. What are the functions of this advisory body? There are content development, work at international, European and Latin American level. We will see later the importance of to capture votes for the future, drafting and disseminating and activism. We have activism. We have already held 3 previous seminars with an open and participatory character to disseminate the topic of the convention, with more than 200 participants in each case. An open mailbox has been created for receiving specific proposals, and the use of social networks has been facilitated in relation to the work of the consultative body. And finally, which are the lessons we learn in this process by the moment? First, utilization of the management capacities of senior organizations. We have to be serious to propose the adequate persons and to speak properly. Second, all of the participants, PhD. I don't want to be elitist, but things are like are in our world. Establish close relationships with the public administration. Loyal, professional, and highly competent cooperation and commitment. We are here to deliver results, not to be seen, to appear in a photograph. Balancing protection with the autonomy of older persons. The combination of protection rights and non-discrimination, including technological rights. And that's all. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much. I have it.
Okay. Can you hear me with the mic, or it's not working yet? Not working yet. Oh, now now it works. Thank you so much for sharing your experience from Spain and about lessons of being effective, I suppose, and now lessons on how to be effective in this work. And now I would like to turn to Chris Serorian and with a question: what is your experience in bringing together diverse organizations to build common positions in Belgium and contribute to the UN process, and what can we learn from this process to inspire similar national coordination? Over to you.
Thank you. Good morning. Well, for the sake of time, I will skip a lot of what I wanted to say about how we as OCRA try to work together with the other grassroots organizations in Belgium for common inputs and lobbying. As you know, Belgium is a complex country. And also the landscape of senior organizations is also complex, with organizations for each, separate organizations for each language community. Ultimately, this proved no obstacle to reaching a consensus among us. For a common input, you can find that input on the website of the Human Rights Council, without much discussions, without a lot of conflicting points of view, no conflicting points of view until now. We used our federal council advisory council for older people as a platform, forming that consensus. What helped is that it's not new for us. It's a common track record during years to put pressure on the Belgian political parties and the Belgian authorities to engage in the debate, to support the idea of a UN convention, a substantive legal binding convention. What helped it also is a common conviction that we have to move beyond the general debate about nice principles. Principles as dignity, autonomy for older people, inclusion, no infantilization. What does that really mean? Neglecting that finally, it's all about the triple R of rights, rules, and respect. Enforceable rights, enforceable rules, and the guarantee that those rights and rules are respected by effective enforcement mechanisms. That's what a rights-based approach is all about. Not about principles, but enforceable rights. What helped also is the good collaboration we had with our national watchdogs, public and private, as Amnesty, like Amnesty International. The good collaboration we've got those watchdogs. Last year we had nice reports, both from the Flemish Institute for Human Rights and from our Interfederal Institute for Human Rights on specifically age discrimination, which was quite helpful. This has led to that common input you can find on the site of the Human Rights Council, and we use this now as also a stepping stone for further lobbying. Our Belgian government, our new Belgian government, has put the idea of a UN convention, the support for UN convention, in its new political governmental declaration. But until now, what they are really doing is rather transparent. Yesterday, I could see on the Human Rights Council website, there seems to be a Belgian input, but the link doesn't work. So it's not transparent. We have to check. What we hear is that there is some reluctance from some people saying that, well, what can a UN convention add to the actual international acquis? Everything is already covered by the rest. That's one thing we heard. The other thing we hear sometimes is that there is, especially from the side of the administrations, some reluctance for new reporting obligations. That's the fourth R, which is important, the R of reporting to Geneva. But what we are also afraid, a little bit afraid, that at the end of the day, from the right side of the political spectrum, there is that growing frustration with international and European standards, and also for new international European standards, because they are afraid that this more and more is an obstacle for the erosion of actual rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much for keeping the time and for sharing. Yes, let's see. This, for sharing your experience and how the work at national level looks like to convince governments and how the collaboration matters among different stakeholders here in Belgium. I think we have a time for short second round of questions. So I would be really grateful if you could say what are your plans and next steps to contribute to this process? Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, nothing for us without us. It means that nothing for older persons without older persons. This is the first rule. Second, the Spanish government is on the move of this convention. So this is good. And how to proceed, how we are going. We will continue to meet every 2 months in the consultative body. Second, thanks to the age grant, regranting, we presented this year, we have carried out a political advocacy event in the parliament at the 25th of May with of associations of older persons and pensioners. Second, jurists and politicians from the social field and for the Foreign Affairs Ministry of the fight and other authorities that fight against discrimination ageism, including the State Attorney General's Office. We got in a law that the high authority for non-discrimination also is in charge of older persons, not only for women, that's beautiful, not only for race and other causes, also for older persons. That's important. And also, we got all the parliamentary groups without exception, from the left to the right and very right, that they have to participate. They participated in this event and they expose their awareness in the matter of the convention. Then we start to try to make lobby inside the parliament. Second, we will hold meetings with associations of all the persons to establish a roadmap on the convention in Spain in October, which will serve as a guide for successful political advocacy. We organize with the government a Latin American seminar that will be held in Santa Cruz de la Sierra in Bolivia at the end of June, 30th of June to 3rd of July, with representatives from the 22 Latin American countries to make progress on the convention, taking in account the existence of an Inter-American Convention on the Protection of the Human Rights of Older Persons ratified by most of the countries of the region. So they can be championships in the United Nations discussion, because they know what is on the table.
Thank you.
I finish. Our president of the platform of all the persons pensioners from Spain will participate in this seminar. Okay, so we will try to continue. I hope that the regranting activity will continue. The important in this case is not the money, is the help to have the European approach and to communicate to others and to involucrate other associations in the movement, because it will take time. It will take time.
Sure, it takes time. Thank you so much. Also for sharing your experience in international collaboration and how to use the experience of other regions in the process and how to learn from them. And now, if you'd like to share your plans for your, Chris, for your work.
Very briefly, what I particularly wanted to share with you is how we, as Belgian grassroots organizations, with our new Belgian alliance for UN Convention, we take the opportunity also to put our own house in order, especially for age discrimination. Yeah? We don't have to wait for Geneva or New York or whatever for campaigning for national solutions. That's what we're trying to do with some organizations, Droit Devant, for example, is present also today, and other organizations. We started to make a list of national or Flemish or Brussels or Walloon discriminations you can find legally or in practice. We started with two or three points, and now we have bringing together all the expertise and the expertise of what we call experience expertise of all the people themselves, what they experience also as discrimination. In the meantime, we have a list of more than 30 points. Maybe that can be an invitation for other countries to do their homework also. For example, do we have to accept mandatory retirement ages? Do we have to accept in Belgium that a lot of benefits for disabled persons are excluded when the handicap has not been discovered before the age of 66. Big problem in Belgium. We've supported since last year from our constitutional court, but without a political solution, etc. I can go on. Maybe one element I wanted to add is that based also on the work of our national watchdogs for human rights, we see also that when we go to the courts for some age discriminations, European legislation is not always helpful. One of the big problems is Article 6 of the directive, the framework directive for the anti-discrimination on the labor market, which allows a lot of justification grounds. Maybe that's also a problem for the proposal of the horizontal directive, etc. So besides that national front, we have to open maybe also a third front between the international and national front. What can we do already on a European level? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I believe that the work at national level is crucial to make governments. Yeah, please, applause. Thank you. And the work at national level is so crucial because it will also prepare governments to be ready to contribute to the process at global level. So we need to go parallelly and it supports each other, like in terms. Would you like to add one sentence?
One sentence. We cannot forget the power of our votes. In the case of Spain, 11 million persons are elders. We have 45 million of inhabitants, but 11, if we take out the children, the big group is the older persons.
And that was the one.
We have to move this political punch. Sorry, I forgot in my intervention.
No, that's fine. Thank you so much for adding it. It's true. It's important to feel the power and feel confident as a group. I was asked also to add something about NHRI, National Human Rights Institutions, and civil society collaboration with older persons themselves. So maybe I will only say a few words that there are different types of national human rights institutions. So they have slightly different functions. Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights of Poland, for instance, is a kind of ombudsman, which means that he receives complaints also from older persons, from civil society organizations. And in this regard, by analyzing them, collecting them, adding legal expertise and the knowledge about human rights of all persons, about international law, national legal framework, prepares motions to the government, advise government on how to work. So in this regard, NHRI channel the voices of older persons, adding their expertise, their knowledge, seeing a bit maybe broader picture of the international law. And in this sense, we heavily rely on collaboration with civil society organizations and on complaints. It's so important to receive complaints. So the awareness raising among older persons, which is the work very often civil society does, is so crucial because only people who are aware of their rights can complain and give the fuel to the NHRI to work on that. So therefore, it's so important to have such an exchange as today and at both national level, regional level, and also at global levels, 3 levels. So therefore, it's crucial, and only when we work in such a collaborative way that makes sense and I think necessary, not only like towards the convention, on the way towards the convention, and how we will see how it evolves, but also when it will be already adopted, to make it implemented, because national human rights institutions in your countries will, I hope, support you, will have the knowledge, and will also be equipped by the convention with monitoring monitoring mandate to support all the persons in actually enjoying rights. And I'll stop here, and I think we go to the break. Yes, please enjoy your break. Thank you so much. It was really great. Thank you.
Las personas mayores, especialmente las muy mayores como yo, sufrimos diariamente vulneraciones de nuestros derechos. Pienso que una convención internacional nos daría una fuerza, nos empoderaría de cara a poder reivindicar en cada caso en que sentamos que nuestros derechos son vulnerados, para poderlos reivindicar como corresponde.
This needs to make a real, tangible difference. It means being able to challenge the unfair treatment and having a direct, influential voice in the very policies that shape their daily lives.
In practice, older persons still experience a lot of discrimination because of their age. The convention could help by creating awareness that human rights belong to all human beings, no matter whether we are young or old, and human rights may never be taken away or limited because of age. And it would give a strong recognition that aging is part of humanity.
Right now, many older individuals simply don't have the tools or the backing to fight back against discrimination. And without this convention, older people will continue to be sidelined, forced to rely on the goodwill of others, rather than being recognized as autonomous individuals who hold the power to stand up for themselves.
I believe a United Nations Convention on the Rights of Older Persons is important because there is a gap on ageism and age discrimination in the existing 9 core human rights instruments of the United Nations human rights system.
Las personas mayores que, sobre todo las muy mayores, han vivido otra relación social, una desvalorización de las personas mayores, es importante que tengan conciencia, y al tener conciencia de que tienen detrás una convención internacional en la que apoyarse y en la que reclamar sus derechos, puede hacer cambiar las leyes, las normas, las relaciones de las personas mayores con su país, con su comunidad, con su ayuntamiento, con su entorno.
So the CRPD, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, has helped to move away from a medical model of disability to a human rights model of disability. And for me, the Convention on the Rights of Older Persons is just about that, to move away from a medical model of aging to a human rights model of aging, and seeing age and aging as part of humanity and human experience.
En Cataluña estamos trabajando hace años, se está en el Parlamento, una ley de las personas mayores. Pero claro, esto se refiere solo a Cataluña, no tendrá nunca la misma fuerza, o la fuerza de una ley autonómica, que una ley internacional. Esa ley internacional es en la que se puede apoyar para reivindicar el ejercer un determinado derecho.
This convention must help move us toward a world where aging is met with genuine dignity and respect, and where all the generations feel secure and confident in their societal standing. It needs to completely shift the narrative. We must move away from viewing older people as vulnerable citizens who just need to be cared for, and start recognizing them for who they truly are: powerful, informed right holders with the full backing of the law to demand the equality they deserve.
Yeah, welcome everybody. I hope you had a nice coffee break and could refresh your brains and minds. We would like to welcome you to this session entitled Regional Leadership in Action, Building Commitments Towards a UN Convention. And it's an honor to be moderating the session with the distinguished speakers here, which I would like to introduce, but perhaps just very briefly. My name is Ina Völker. I represent BAXO, which is the German National Association for Senior Citizens Organizations, as you know, and also the immediate past co-chair of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Older People. But let me now introduce our distinguished panelists. First, to my right, we have Idoia Mendia, member of the European Parliament from Spain and co-chair of the European Parliament Intergenerational Forum. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. Then Christine Meinecke, representative of the United Nations Commissioner for Human Rights in the European Union. Thank you as well for being here with us. And last but not least, Christoph Angster of the Federal Ministry of Labor, Social Affairs, Healthcare and Consumer Protection from Austria. Thank you. Well, we have already heard a little bit about the resolution of the Human Rights Council today, establishing the Intergovernmental Working Group on the Human Rights of Older Persons, which marks a very important milestone. And this resolution has been co-sponsored by 81 states, including 14 EU member states, and it was adopted by consensus. So this is really creating a very important opportunity for us. And the question we want to explore today is how the European Union and its member states contribute to and help to shape this negotiations on a future UN Convention on the Rights of Older Persons. And we will look at what regional leadership could mean in practice, what commitments may be needed, and how different stakeholders can contribute to an inclusive and effective process. So let us start with the first round of questions around the EU engagement and why it matters. So first, perhaps Christine, to your question. In January 2026, in the beginning of this year, you hosted a meeting to foster regional awareness and mobilization around the process. So perhaps you could share a couple of key messages from this meeting and also perhaps your personal reflections as representative of OHCHR to the European Union on why EU engagement matters in this process. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. Very pleased to be here. My colleague Khaled already this morning outlined a little bit OHCHR's role, and I do want to take that step back because one, we have the role of being the secretariat to this member state-led process. At the same time, in that member state-led process, different actors engage. One actor that hasn't been maybe mentioned so much before is also the United Nations. From the International Labour Organization to UNICEF, etc., all these entities engage in that process, and OHCHR itself in its own right as well. And that's the role that we play here also as OHCHR in Brussels to assist in facilitating engagement with the overall process. We are well placed because we are the agency that is looking after the human rights-based approach mainstreaming the rights of older persons in the overall work of the United Nations. And the Human Rights Council resolution that gave the mandate to develop the legally binding instrument also gave the mandate to the High Commissioner for Human Rights and the Independent Expert for Older Persons to engage regionally on this portfolio. So indeed, in January, we had this expert roundtable. Quite a few colleagues here in the room, based in Brussels, were participating, and thanks to Age Platform for the great partnership in doing that. Some key highlights from that meeting were also raised already today in the keynote speech. Evidence-based, legally binding instrument is to close certain gaps in protection, specifically around age discrimination and rights to protection, and to establish accountability mechanism. And as the independent expert Piotr said, it's not about creating new rights, but making existing rights effective in older age. Secondly, the instrument would be a great tool for empowerment and recognition of older persons. And we have seen that, and we just heard Theresa Wegner, also that it mobilized around the CIPD, a completely different movement of people. And we also heard about that, nothing about us, without us, resounding very strongly here, and as a methodology, basically, to it. Also, the EU and its member states, it offers an opportunity to demonstrate leadership in multilateralism and human rights, which is strongly needed at this time. And lastly, even though we heard that it's not only a reality, but demographic reality is facing member states around the world and in the European Union, and makes it even more urgent to protect the rights of older persons. So yeah, maybe I keep it here.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks for keeping to time, because we want to make sure that we have time for discussion later on. So, Ms. Media, from your perspective as a member of the European Parliament, if you had to make the case for effective EU engagement in the negotiations, what added value can the EU institutions bring that member states alone can't?
Well, thank you, and good morning to everybody. I think that the European Union institutions also have an important contribution to make in all this debate. The European Parliament, for example, can maintain political attention, support ambition, and create political momentum. And the European Commission can contribute with policy expertise, support coordination, and connect this process with the EU work on equality, social rights, and demographic change. And the Council can help to develop common approaches among member states. For me, I think that the European Union has significant experience in human rights, anti-discrimination policies, and social inclusion. There is knowledge and experience at European and regional level that can contribute to this process. So also we can also learn from previous negotiations, as the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And the most important lesson, in my opinion, is that we need political commitment, institutional coordination, and the active involvement of civil society. And people directly concerned are essential to move from discussion to concrete results. I think that this is really important. And with this, I end. I think that for Europe is an opportunity to demonstrate that we are engaged in this topic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Also very important, like we're highlighting the experience that the EU can bring to the table with the anti-discrimination policies. Yeah, Christoph, would you like to come in here from a member state perspective now? What are the opportunities of regional coordination, and what would be the challenges or perhaps even the risks if the EU were to remain largely at the sidelines?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much that here is a room, a big room full of people, stakeholders that are really interested in this topic, that are trying to push forward this topic. We are right now at a very pivotal moment. We are, drafting a convention. And let me tell you, I started this process in 2018. And the interest for this topic was very, very specific. In the bubble, it was there, but outside the bubble, it was not existent. And I think it is really important to highlight what's happening right now, that Age platform, Europe, and all its members, that you're creating a momentum, a movement that is really communicating the interest, the matters that we're talking about when we're drafting a convention, that you bring this to the people that really need this convention. And for us as member states, what is our task in here? We have to be the bridge or build the bridge between our citizens and the work that we're doing now in Geneva at the Intergovernmental Working Group. We have to make sure that the interests of our citizens, that they are represented in what we are writing into this convention. So what do I see as my task? And I am the focal point for human rights of older persons in Austria. I want to make sure that whoever is sitting at the table, the negotiation table when we're drafting, that the interests of NHRIs, NGOs, civil society in general, all the persons of Austria, that they are transported through our ministry, through the member state, to the table, the negotiation table, where all the stakeholders that were mentioned before, that they are mentioned there, that they're heard, and that they are written down within the convention. So right now, what is our task? We just want to be active. We want to be there. We want to make sure that whatever comes right now will be of high importance for all the persons. Because we've seen it today as well. We are all facing demographic change, especially European countries. We will have challenges that need to be addressed, and we do need a convention that will prepare our governments, our leaders to kind of fix the upcoming problems. And there are many problems ahead.
Super, thank you so much. And perhaps we can come back to the question about how you're involving everybody in Austria in the next round of questions. Perhaps we could look now a little bit more specifically around on regional leadership and how could that look like. And earlier this year, you host discussions at the European Parliament on the EU role of the European Union in the drafting process. And what opportunities do you see there for European cooperation during the negotiations, and perhaps also where you see challenges?
Well, I think that these negotiations about the convention has to be an opportunity from the bottom to the top to bring the opportunity to everybody to feel that it's not only something at the international level, something abstract, legal, but on the other way around, that this has something to do with your daily life, that if we get that convention, that your life is going to be better because you are going to have better services and your right has going to be being defended. So I think that in the case of the European Parliament, I must confess, and I think that in other occasions I have told about this, it's not the sexiest subject. I mean, everybody is talking about security, competitiveness, but I think that if we want to be a region, a competitive region in the world, we have to take care of our all people with rights. And this convention is an opportunity to show that. And also because Europe is based on regions, and the regions, I only know the case of Spain, but I have to confess that we have very good practices about how to handle the services and the opportunities for our people. I think that we should make an effort in our own countries to have the opportunity to boost debates and opportunity to listen to the people, to feel that convention is something for them and not for the government or for something very abstract at the international level.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's a big task we all have, really, to make sure that everybody understands the importance of the convention to ultimately also engage in the process and even later on, once it is actually there in the next phases. Yeah. Perhaps let me first go back to you, Mrs. Heinecke. What could regional leadership look like for you? Any thoughts?
Actually, now that I was listening to the first hours of this morning, I have changed a bit. I think the regional leadership is undoubtedly necessary, but I think the element that is to bring from the United Nations perspective is also that the regional leadership is necessary vis-à-vis the global world, because this is a framework for the whole world. And I think sometimes it's a bit forgotten, because in the discussions here it's about, but we have the acquis and we are kind of okay. But it's not only about Europe, it's about the whole world. And secondly, I think EU leadership is very strongly needed to give that expertise and the acquis and to share that. But also there is still a lot of work to be done to have the consensus within the EU. And so we just heard from the ambassador, who also called on the EU to take that leadership role, that it's 14 member states so far who supported the resolution. So coming from all the angles, I think we need a lot of leadership from all of you at the member states level as well to make that point why it is important. One argument that was mentioned, I think, by the colleague from Belgium, was that member states say maybe this treaty is not needed. One, because we have the acquis, and the other one is that it will create another burden, a reporting burden, oversight mechanisms. We have so many of this. So to this, I would also say that there are a lot of negotiations going on in the wider human rights framework of the United Nations, how to address that. So this is called the treaty body strengthening process for those who are more familiar with this work. And it's really about using existing monitoring structures to then follow up in the oversight. So there are ways to deal with legitimate concerns around the new convention, but this is all for discussion, and there are ways to overcome them. So,
thank you so much. Yeah. You already mentioned again the report of member states. So, Christoph, here also the question for you: what are you doing right now, and perhaps both nationally, but perhaps also in bilaterals or in the international fora in your conversations? I know that your government has been very active also in the process in New York, so there's a lot of experience that you can build on, and it would be interesting to hear a little bit from that.
I mean, there are many things that we're doing, but I would like to highlight two of them. First of all, we're trying to establish a European coordination group. So I've been reaching out to colleagues, also to Spain, for example. And right now we're trying to kind of set up a group of EU member states that will find a way. Maybe it's the Forum of Cuhom, maybe it's going to be another stage, but what we need is, because it's not yet existing, we do need a European coordination. We need that to speak with one voice. In multilateralism, we're seeing there's a big shift of power right now. And I think Europe's strength has always been that we've kind of been united, but we need this for human rights of all persons as well. We need that in multilateralism in general. So right now, I think what is needed is that we reach out as member states, that we use also the institutions with their expertise, their technical inputs from the Commission, from the Council, like all institutions that are available. They need to be brought together, they need to be coordinated, and Europe has to speak with one voice. That would be very important in general for also the global level, that we have, the same road ahead. The second thing, what we're doing on our national capacity is we want to use, or we want to provide a stage for civil society and member states and NHRIs and all the other stakeholders to come together and talk about the issues that are ahead of us. So this is why, for example, in February 27, we will organize a third international conference on human rights of older persons, where it will be our goal to bring member states, especially willing member states, together with representatives from civil society and NHRIs to talk about what's going on in the Intergovernmental Working Group in Geneva, but also to talk about some topics, especially one, loneliness and social exclusion and isolation, which for us is one of the major crossroads when we come to the normative gaps and problems that older persons face, and that we want to be closed with a convention. So what we do on our national capacity is we want to give a stage for civil society to come together, talk with representatives from member states, and through this route try also to navigate or improve the position of member states when they're sitting in closed rooms discussing what will be in a possible convention.
Super, thank you so much. That's two very concrete initiatives that you mentioned. And that brings me an initiative that H Platform is currently doing, basically, and they're gathering pictures to give visibility to a wide range of actions undertaken by member states, civil society, NHRIs, equality bodies, and others to contribute to the negotiations at national and global level. And I think that colleagues will briefly show a website where all of these pledges are coming together. There is also a video pledge, but I think given limited time, we won't show it exactly. We won't show the video pledge, but you can listen to that when you go to the website. You have got the QR code here to the website, and I'd just really like to invite you all to look at the website. And I think it's still open for more pledges to be added. So this really is just an invitation and to make the connection between concrete initiatives like the ones that Christoph just mentioned and others that have been already put on the website. And really talking about civil society participation also, I wanted to come back to that question about the role of civil society and what the EU can contribute to inclusive negotiations. And perhaps, Christina, I can come first to you. What do you think is the role of all the persons and their representative organizations in this process? We have already heard also in the earlier sessions many ideas, but are there also examples from other treaty processes perhaps that you can bring to the table here?
Yeah, thank you so much. So, I mean, the CRPD is surely an example. I think we should be careful not to use it as a blueprint for a new treaty, because we have 9 human rights treaties from which the best can be taken. But still, in the treaty-making process, the EU took a very active part actually in the negotiations and contributed substantively in areas where it has legal competence, such as non-discrimination, employment, and internal markets. So that coming back to the leadership that we have a precedent from before. The novelty in the CRPD was interesting is that it's the only treaty where a regional organization can ratify, the EU, which it has done, and also all member states of the EU have ratified that treaty. The EU also in the negotiation process supported very much participation of persons with disabilities. So again, here the support, including access from other regions where neither the physical, financial, or access to the Geneva negotiations is so easy, could be very valuable by the EU. And lastly, the whole methodology, as was mentioned before, about nothing about us without us, the CRPD surely set a huge precedent on how people were engaged, including part of delegations, etc., which could be, again, a good example. As to monitoring bodies, there are others. When the Convention on Enforced Disappearances was, for example, negotiated, there were some ideas that the Human Rights Committee could become the committee that reviewed the implementation of that treaty. So again, not only looking at one process, but maybe different treaty-making processes can be helpful.
Thank you so much. And you also mentioned again an important part about being part of delegations, all the people being part of delegations. So perhaps, Christoph, something where I'd be interested to also hear your your thoughts on that. Like from the Austrian perspective, are you planning to include all the people and their representative organizations in international delegations, or do you have other ideas about how to make sure that all the people and their organizations can participate in negotiations?
There is a very easy answer to that, because we do have, by law in our constitution, a senior citizens council. So whatever concerns all the persons in Austria, which will have legal effects on their lives, whatever we do, we have to consult the council. So there is no way that any Austrian representative or ambassador or whoever goes to some institution, conference, or negotiation table, that there is not the consultancy with the council in the forefront. So to answer your question, yes, of course, within the council, there is like a very well-developed structure, an infrastructure on how the interests of all the persons are communicated to the council, and the council by law has the right to deal with any matter that concerns the rights of all the persons in Austria. So it's an easy question. By law, I have to consult all the persons before I do or say anything.
You consult them, but it doesn't mean that necessarily you would take some to Geneva with you, right? Sorry to be very explicit here and put you on the spot, but it's a question that we have also in Germany discussed quite broadly. That's why I'm interested to hear your ideas on that.
If resources are available, there has been in the past the possibility to take representatives from the civil society to our negotiations, even with our delegations. But to be honest, right now, it is also a question of resources. Even I sometimes don't go to negotiations if there is a permanent mission present. I write the expertise, which I had consulted in the forefront with the council, and then I just forward it to the colleagues at the permanent missions. So it really depends, and it's sad to say, but it's a financial question as well. But in general, having civil society on board, even in our delegations, is not a no-go.
Mm-hmm. Super. Well, and it's going to be a little bit of a longer process, so we'll see how things play out, and perhaps more resources become available as well in the future. Well, Ms. Mindia, let's go back to you and hear a little bit from you about multi-stakeholder engagement in the process and your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that to ensure that multi-stakeholder engagement starts, I think that we should change the way we present this convention. We should not present it as something about all people, because it really concerns all of us, because aging is a shared experience, and if we are lucky, we are going to get all of us. So I think that is about how we shape the conditions of the future societies and how we age in that future societies. And that's why intergenerational solidarity should be one of the key principles of this process, because in my opinion, the different generations, young and old people, face very similar problems when we talk about housing or employment, or, I mean, many things, access to services. So I think that that's an opportunity. And also because we need to ensure in this debate the diversity of the society, because I think that aging process also is changing. We are not aging as we aged in the past. I mean, when you become 65, you have a lot of life in front of you, no? And you can do many things. You can reinvent yourself also. So that has to be, this vision has to be in the convention. And also we have to take into account many phenomena that we have in Europe, Europe and all over the world. Migration, the multicultural societies that we now have, the concept of the family that is changing, and we have to take it also into account. So And also, if you belong to a collective, think about LGBT, probably to become old is different if you are or not in that collective. Also, for women, I mean, it's different to become old if you are a woman or a man. So all these visions have to take into account. And for that, I mean, the participation of all the civil society, not only the civil society that works with all people. I think that's very important. That's why my main obsession is to engage everybody in this process at national level and at regional level. I think that, and it's great that you have that council in your country.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's a very important message also for most of us as civil society representatives to make sure that we also include other groups and in the further process. And speaking of that, I'd like to open the floor for questions and comments, but mainly questions. And I'd really like to ask you to just pose one question at once, because I want to make sure that as many people as possible get the floor. And when you speak, perhaps identify yourselves very briefly at the beginning, just with the name, organization, and country. And I might take 2 or 3 questions before I would like then to go back to the speakers. I'll try, even though I haven't been here in the remainder of the meeting, but I'll try to go to people that I usually hear speak a little bit less. So let me all show up your hands again, please. To the lady in the front, perhaps first, and then I'll go further around. Thank you so much.
Yes. I'm Lise Bjerglund, and I'm from Denmark, Day and Age. And it's a question to you, Christoph Angster. You said you would like to have a group of countries to make them to go further. Why don't you use age? Thank you.
Okay, that's very concrete. I'll take first 2 more questions, and then I'll get back to you, Christoph. At the back, I see, I think, Ken, if I see that correct, yeah? Thank you. And then Philip and Patrick.
Thanks so much. I'm Ken Bluestone from Age International. I'm part of the Age UK family, and I was also very happy to be a part of Age Platform Europe at one point, and very proud to have also been one of the founders of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Older People. It is a comment, I'm sorry, but I would love to get the responses back. And there's one crucial element which I haven't heard yet in the discussion so far, and I'm picking up on the independent experts' comment this morning about the need to seize this once-in-a-generation opportunity. It's a once-in-a-generation opportunity to create something that's transformational. And that hinges all on the process. And it's not about just the process of getting the right language in the legal document, which is absolutely critical. It's about the process surrounding that of awareness raising, of changing attitudes, of shifting perceptions of what it means to be older. And for that, the task starts now, actually. It is about the conversation, not just that we're having as experts, but the conversation that we need to bring to communities. And this requires, from the governments and the institutions, an investment in the organizations representing older people themselves. That's the lesson from CRPD. So this is, if we want to make this transformational, a must-have is the actual financial investments in the civil society organizations that are part of this process.
Thank you, Ken. I'm sure there will be comments on your comment. Now, Philip, and then Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Philip Habrarots, I'm coming from Finland, representing a part of Finnish retired. It has been underlined how important it is to have older persons and civil society included in negotiations. The will of being engaged and to contribute exists. And everybody say how important it is to have them included. That's good in the drafting of the convention. But my question is about this aspect in the content of the forthcoming convention? Will there be request for a specific article saying about an inclusive compulsory consultation of older persons and civil society when the convention is implemented? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Philip. And then let's take a last question before I get back to the panelists.
Yes, Patrick Pennings from the European Seniors Union. I just wanted to come back to what was said in the previous panel, that is that there is still a reluctance from a number of member states with regarding the convention. So what will be done and by which institution about giving a clearly outline of what is the added value of another international instrument? I think that is important. That is what is missing and what will be added by a new treaty.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, for that question. I think that's something that's been discussed for a long time, but I'll hold back here as moderator. I'd like to give the floor to the panelists. We have 4 questions now. I don't know who wants to go first. Yeah, for the first question was directly to you, Christoph. Yeah.
So if I remember correctly, the first question was why don't we reach out to age? We've done already. So I've contacted Nena in the forefront, and she's always so kind in helping out. So this process is accompanied by civil society as well. But let me please highlight as well that this group, it should support member states. Of course, the participation of civil society will be important, but as well, right now the main target for me or for the idea of this group is really to target member states that will be part in the negotiations and the drafting of the convention. But of course, I mean, this is in our Austrian DNA. We don't do anything without consulting civil society in general. So they will always be part of the team.
Thank you. Perfect. That's a concrete question to that answer to that question. Christine.
I mean, on all the comments made, I cannot, I do agree. I think the one issue is about the added value of the treaty. I think that has been made by the keynote speaker maybe today. There's OHCHR research that has been over many years. This added value, and it needs to be brought back to the communities as well, and what does it mean, etc. So I think in that sense, we need engagement of everybody in a very difficult context, financial context as well. I hear you that older persons organizations and other civil society need to be substantively financially supported, but we are up against a lot also. I think as a human rights movement overall, I like to give the example of the European Social Reproductive Health NGO that did a study that between 2019 and 23, so over a 4-year period, anti-rights and anti-gender entities were funded with 1.2 billion. Okay? So over 4 years, only in Europe on anti-rights narratives. This is what we are up against. Our global United Nations budget per year is annually 400 million. Okay, so we need all hands on deck, I would say. And I think strategically aligned also. I don't think everybody, and that's my personal view, needs to be in Geneva for the negotiations. There are some who are very well equipped to do so, to exactly see what content the new treaty should have based on the best evidence, etc. Other organizations are maybe better placed at national level, others better at regional. And I think this strategic aligned also when we have so few hands on deck is really crucially important, and also will not set up some for disappointment, because it might not be so interesting to follow 5 days of discussions in Geneva. So just saying, you know, everybody has their role to play. All hands on deck. The High Commissioner for Human Rights is launching a global alliance for human rights this week. You have a global alliance for older persons. Let's see how to connect some thoughts there. He is also really asking that many actors come out again, speak again for human rights, and that includes the rights of older persons.
Well, I want to say that I agree with the minister, because I think that at this moment, the most important step will be to reach an agreement between many countries within the European Union really involved and really interested in this topic, because in that way, if we get that, we will use a lot the role of the European Commission also, that nowadays is very difficult to know who is in charge of what. So I think that that's the main step. So yeah, and that's why I also, from my point of view and my job, I try to have on the agenda, on the political agenda in the European Parliament, this topic all the time.
Thank you so much. I'm just wondering if perhaps, Cassino, if you want to comment also on the comment made by, or the question made by Philip on an article on kind of inclusive participation in the Convention?
This is what I said a bit. This is now being shaped, the content of the convention. To say this is a member state-led process which opens different opportunities for input, and this can be an input. I haven't gone through commissions where there's already there as an input to the drafting process, but to be seen.
Yes, I think so. Well, let me see if there are further questions. Hands raised. Oh, there's actually many. So I see Anthony, I see Anna, and I see Jos. But yeah, all of us, all of you, perhaps very briefly, just with one question.
I have one question. I try to make the link between local policy and global policy. And I see that already exist many rights. But the problem is access to right and how improve access to right. In Belgium, for instance, we have a minimum income for older people, but 50% of the people don't take it up because they are not informed about it or not know how they have access to. How can at UN level, how we can formulate it that at regional, at local level, they need to simplify, need to improve this access and to withdraw the burdens to access to the rights.
Okay. Let's take the two very brief questions and then I'll get back to you. And I think we're still good in time. Yeah.
Hi, Anna Biondi, speech CGIL. I totally agree about the fact that we need to have a better coordination at European level. But being this a UN process, it's important that the voice of the countries that are there, that by all means, very often is the mission. Because I'm in Geneva, I work in the ILO before. Very often you have the mission that says, we didn't have any instructions, so we shut up. This is the moment where the European countries can really shape a vision of rights, and that's what we need, you know. So please make sure that we do the coordination, but in order to have more voices, not to have less voices present in Geneva. You know, I think that what we are doing here is to ask all our members to push for their governments to speak very loudly. So I really hope that sometime, you know, the coordination, only the EU can talk. No, you know, it's like the Commission. No, you know, everybody has to speak and everybody has to bring the point of the rights. Thank you.
Traditionally, governments have been reluctant to include age as a protected characteristic with regards to discrimination. You can see the Nations Charter of Human Rights and also CHR, where age is missing this list of discrimination factors. Do you think that today the states have come around to try to crystallize age in the context of an international convention?
Thank you so much. Well, let me go back to panelists for perhaps a combination of both comments or responses to comments and questions made. And if you like, you can also already include a kind of last key takeaway messages?
May I start? I would like to respond to actually two questions. It was like the added value of a convention. And let me just say one thing. We do have protocols and instruments that protect older persons. In Europe, we have a very well-developed system to protect older persons during their life, work life. After, when they retire, it's another topic. But one thing that a convention could really bring an added value to is that the decentralized protection with all those different conventions, protocols, charters, that it could be unified. And this brings me to your question, like so many older persons are not informed about their rights because they're decentralized. You don't know where to look for what rights you want to address. If you have a convention, there is the possibility to kind of sum everything up, create common denominators for all the different treaties and bring them together in one place where you look at one specific document and you have the right references to all the other instruments that might still exist out there as well.
Yeah, maybe on that issue about access to rights, knowledge about rights, I would also argue exactly the validity for such a new treaty, but that also within the existing human rights treaties, there is an obligation by states who have ratified the treaties to inform about how the treaty is being implemented in the respective state, what access there is, etc., which is repeated every 5 to 10 years to member states as well as an obligation when the review is happening, etc. Then we all know there are many gaps of, then why certain things do not happen, where national human rights institutions also play a big role in their networks in raising awareness, being a link, having complaints mechanisms possibly, etc. So, many things make up the human rights ecosystem there. Maybe in the line of pledges that were asked for, we will pledge here from the UN Human Rights Office in Brussels to try to be its link, as you so wish, in debriefing and keeping informed of what's happening at the Geneva level and trying to facilitate also how you would want to engage with those negotiations in Geneva. So that's our pledge. Thank you.
I think that Dios has a very good point because in my experience, I think that it's very difficult to reach the people that is in more need. Even if we would have the best convention, as my experience as a regional government level, I think that you need to do more for, and I hope that the technology, the digitalization, the artificial intelligence could help us in the future to fight the non-take-up of the many services that most of people in need have right to it, but they don't know, they don't even know, and they don't know how to know it. And also, it has to be like an engagement between the local and regional governments and the civil society, the organized civil society, to reach that people in need, because they are all days working with them close. So that, I think that with alliance, we can get it. And thank you.
Thank you so much. And very difficult, I think, to sum up this very rich discussion. But one thing that I took away is that there's a role for everybody, independent of where we sit in within civil society, government, UN, EU institutions. I think all of us, we have a role to play in that important process. And I think lots of work to do. And with that, I'll like to thank our panelists and give them a round of applause, please. Thank you so much for being here. And I think I'll hand over to Maciek.
Does it work? Yes, it works. So now we are moving almost to the final. Well, actually, we are approaching the end of the conference with the final session. But before giving the floor to our last but not least speakers of today, I was just looking at you, Sylvia. 2 minutes, if we give you now the floor just to tell us where we are, what comes out from these bubbles. Yeah, what can we see? How was the exercise? And yes, where it brings us, all this, let's say, graphical report, visual report.
So just first to say, this is a mirror into the ideas that have been shared. It's my eyes outside perspective also what's happening. I've been listening, observing. I've been listening out for patterns, most of all. And I'll keep it super brief. I was asked to come up with what's the main message that I heard from this, and you will see a central illustration here. So what I heard was about having all the persons have a seat at the table to take part in decision making, to take part in everything that is to do with the Commission, and in order to give them dignity. This is what the central illustration is representing. Everything around that, I will invite you to come have a look at detail, all the quotes. There's a lot more to it, but this is my last thing, the main message that I managed to pick up from what I've heard so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can give a big applause indeed. So therefore now I will invite to the podium the final speakers for our closing panel. So first of all, we have with us, I'm just looking, yes, no, actually I think I would like to invite Mr. Drahoslav Stefanek, the chair of the Council Working Party on Human Rights, whom I just saw, but I think he has just left the room for the moment. So in that case, Haydun, you as our president, you are also, of course, a seat on the podium. We do as well have online from the European Commission, the DG Justice, so Deputy Head of Unit, which is in a way our contact, direct interlocutor at the DG Justice, Mr. Carles Dedeu Font Cuberta, joining us again, as I said, online, but we are waiting because I'm sure that it's just a question of, yes. But is he with us, Mr. Stefanek? Yes, exactly. I saw. Yes, here we are, looking up. Absolutely. So please join us on the podium, and Haydun Molenkopf, Age President. No, you can maybe sit here. And then, of course, yes, up to you if you would like to speak from the podium or if you'd like to take, let's say, more prominent place. But very briefly, I think you've been, almost three of you, for, if not the entire duration of this conference, at least for part of it, but also you know who we are, what we are doing, and we've been already in, let's say, discussions and cooperation with, so now I'm turning to our institutional interlocutors, the member states and the European Commission. So I was thinking that if you could, and I make the connection to the previous panel, because this question of how member states should actually coordinate contribution to this drafting process of the legally binding instrument. I think that's something maybe that you, Drahoslav, you could take on. I'm no pressure, but I think the question is really well formulated. So we would be very happy to listen on your side how actually these discussions are already going on among member states, and then more specifically on this coordination. Let's say, yes, let's be united among members of the European Union. The floor is yours.
Thanks much. It's of course great to be back at one of the events devoted to this very important topic, together with Haydun, which we met at the European Parliament so distinguished Ido Mendia left already, but that was one of the excellent events which definitely could contribute to also the coordination of the EU member states. Sorry, I could follow only the previous panel since we are very busy in Brussels, and we have actually one important document under silence procedure until 1. So I'm a bit tense because of the other issues, but this is very nice opportunity for me to detach a bit from everyday life in Brussels and in COHOM and in the Council of the EU. So yes, definitely. What I would like to say that now when we have a date already for the Intergovernmental Working Group, which will be taking place in Geneva between 13 and 17 July. I definitely would invite the member states, and in particular Slovenia, who is kind of natural leader of the process, to initiate the discussion in COHOM. This is definitely something which I'm planning. Because before each and every session of the Intergovernmental Working Groups in Geneva, whether it is on this topic, this will be the first session, of course, if I don't count the organizational session, which took place in February, we try to coordinate. We definitely try to get some mandate for our colleagues in Geneva, the EU delegation, what could they say, when to speak. And so this will definitely happen between now and between 13th of July. Definitely we will have a session. We will have a discussion, internal discussion in COHOM. What I also signaled in April when we were speaking about these issues in the European Parliament, I underlined the role of the Commission, which is inevitable. We have to have simply all institutions on board, and the Commission will be definitely very important interlocutor. And also, definitely what I can expect that there will be issues with the mandate, because some member states I could envisage that would say that we don't have a draft, as far as I know, the official draft of the convention, but that draft will appear sooner or later, and then there will be the issue of the mandate for negotiations. So far, I think for the time being, in July, maybe in October as well, I see the engagement of the EU maybe a bit limited. Because we will not have definitely for July session the mandate which has to be proposed by the Commission, and it's the only Commission can do that, and then to be by the Council. So but definitely I will do my best also from my personal point of view, and to get as much coordination as possible and to get as many EU member states on board as possible.
Thank you very much. Actually, you made, in a way, transition to the next speaker from the institutional side. I was going to ask you, Carles, about this question of actually, indeed, the Commission for the moment does not have yet the mandate, specific mandate to participate in this UN process, but also, as you were saying, the whole process actually is starting, I think, for all of us. So there are many nitty-gritty details of this, but I think with time, and we do hope that all this actually will be shaped in the best, how to say, in the most inclusive way for all different participants. So now turning to the European Commission, Carles, if we could maybe hear from you this morning. By the way, there was this very interesting contribution from the member of the cabinet of Executive Vice President Roxana Minzatu, insisting on the fact that actually already today, under different, let it be the EU treaties, but also the European Charter of Fundamental Rights, and of course all different objectives that the current Commission has, they cover all those different topics that relate actually to older people. So how do you see, from the perspective of the Commission, how indeed what are the links and how you would like to make this connection between the UN process, but also this objective, for example, of the Union of Equality? The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. First of all, I apologize I could not make it physically today, but I wanted to be here with you virtually. Let me first thank you, H Platform, and for your 25th anniversary. I think it's a major achievement, and I would like to praise the cooperation that the Commission has with H Platform since long time. We are indeed supporting the activities of H Platform since long time through also a grant, a financial support that we are providing through the SURF program. I think that the work that you are doing is absolutely essential to not only in the advocacy, but also award raising or collecting data, and this is something that we really welcome very much. You were mentioning how the Commission is now following these discussions on the United Nations. I can say that we are really closely following these discussions. We are working with our external services, EIS, who is taking a lead on this. We are, as you mentioned, Maciek, as you mentioned yourself, this is a really starting point of the discussions. We will see how these discussions evolve. And then I think that it will be important to assess the different outcomes of these discussions, the meetings that are coming. The first meeting in February was more an organizational meeting. Now we will see how member states, I just want to remind that this is, it was mentioned already, this is a member states-led process. We will need to see how we can continue monitoring this process, how we can ensure the links with the not only the Union of Equality that you were mentioning, Maciek, but also the legislation that exists. But this is, I think, it's in a long-term, forward-looking process that we need to continue monitoring and then assess how best we can provide any input.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. On behalf of H Platform Europe, we cherish very much this open dialogue with the European Commission. Again, we understand that it is just a very early stage of this process, so things will get, let's say, on the track as we move forward. So thank you very much for sharing with us this general overview of how you see the role of the Commission in the process. So now I'm turning to you, Heidrun. I think, of course, you've got this advantage. You've been in the process on the convention for so many years. You actively contributed at the time of the open-ended working group with participation in the meetings in Geneva. Now with this process geographically, let's say, moving to Europe, but of course it's still the same process, having this global dimension that was also today mentioned. So from the perspective of us, older people, H Platform Europe, the largest network of older people organizations of that kind in Europe, what are the takings from today's discussion, from this extremely rich input? I think we will need time to digest all this, but I'm sure that we can already try to have some let's say, first reactions and exactly either maybe recommendations, but in any case, takeaways.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you said rightly that it was a rich discussion. We heard about so many aspects that play a role when we talk about a legally binding instrument, which should become a convention. And I felt a bit that we are common, we have common goals. We are sure about a few aspects, for instance, that older persons or their organizations have to be involved from the beginning, that all levels, from local to regional to the global level, have to be approached and are important, and the flow between them, not just putting efforts on one level, but to see how do they work together. How is it possible to combine higher level policies and local policies? One thing which goes a bit beyond the drafting of this instrument, I feel that there are some general questions combined with it and associated with it. The question of equality and diversity. We heard that diversity is increasing, and I agree with this observation. But how can we create a union of equality or equal rights for everybody in view of the differences? How can we create equal rights if all are different? So this is, in my opinion, a very crucial question which has to be dealt with in the drafting group. How can we really give the same rights, equal rights to everybody in view of the great diversity? And combined with this is the question, what is specific for a certain case or a certain group? What is specific, and why do we explicitly have to mention these cases, these situations, and consider them in the drafting process? So a second issue which came to me during this discussion, it was clear that we have to listen, to hear, to include older persons, but that this is not enough. We have to see concrete results. We need an outcome. Otherwise, we will lose confidence and social cohesion. So the question I remember from Ludovica, what has happened since 25 years of age, of research? Have we seen any concrete improvements? Maybe, yes. In some areas, yes. But what else needs to be done? And I remember one quote, if we deny equal rights to older people, we deny our own future. So this means that the questions we talk about here concern all of us, young, middle-aged, and older persons. A third topic which came up was in the second panel, I think. It was about digitalization and artificial intelligence, which is a rather new phenomenon and which has to be dealt with for the first time in a legally binding instrument. And the question is, can we keep or do we have the right to an own non-digitalized lifestyle? What does this mean in reality? Does everybody have the right to get good care if she or he doesn't want to use digital means to get it? in a society where more and more is offered only via digital means. So does it mean in every village we have to have both digitalized services and personal, individual services? What will be the costs of that? I think we need this right to an analog aging, but we have to be clear about what this means, also in terms of costs. And what I learned is interesting, that devices must be hybrid. I think this is a good idea, a good term. I will keep it in mind for further discussions. So, and what was encouraging, I think, was the contribution of Khaled, who showed us different ways how we can contribute. How we can contribute in our small communities by translating the abstract issues of a convention to everyday life of people at different levels, regional and national and UN levels. And the advice, this came later, to prepare the next steps, to prepare our contributions, to discuss them with other people, with as many people as possible, to report about what we hear, what we experience in Geneva at the next session, and debrief afterwards, talk about it, and then think about the next step and what else we can do. So, thank you.
Well, I think we can make an applaud for this first attempt to summarize, actually, to give the essence of what we've discussed this morning. And I think, Sylvia, actually, what you've just said, Hailun, it helps as well our friend who is trying to summarize all this also behind us. So thank you very much for this. I know that we were not in our program, it was not foreseen to have questions during this panel. We've got a little bit of time, but I wouldn't like, because yes, there was no preparation for it, but maybe like a very open, I would say, question to all of us. So if any of you here in the panel would like to reflect on this, looking at this process of drafting a legally binding instrument with all those different dimensions, institutional ones, but of course, in terms of how the process will be organized, the role of different stakeholders, the way in which they will be contributing, all this put together, I think certainly we've got some challenges. There are some very concrete things to be overcome, resources, procedures, and so on and so forth. But do you see what kind of major opportunity do you see behind this process? Well, the process behind this future legal binding instrument for the rights of older people. Again, it's something I'm looking here for more of a spontaneous reaction. If you had to say very briefly, what major opportunity do you see for what's going on right now? What it would be according to you?
Absolutely. Do you hear me still?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a very good question. And I would say that we've been cooperating between the different stakeholders, and member states. I think that Platform Europe, you've been trying always to include and reach out to the different stakeholders. And I think that this is a very good opportunity to strengthen this cooperation. I think that we have this opportunity because I'm not sure that we can deliver anything by any single actor alone. And I think that this is an opportunity to strengthen this cooperation between the European institutions. We heard the Parliament, you're here in the Commission, the colleagues in the external services, but also the member states, civil society organizations, social partners. And I would say that all the persons themselves that needs to be in the center of these discussions. I really believe that this cooperation is not only essential for for the sake of having a legal convention, a new legal convention, but to reflect the realities of people and maybe respond as well to the demographic change that we are facing. So I see it as an opportunity to strengthen this cooperation and to establish a more, let's say, stable and continued dialogue between all the different stakeholders in this exercise.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, Jaroslav.
Yeah, thanks. Of course, I'm not here to provide any I would say positions on substance because, as it was rightly pointed out by our colleague from the Commission, the process is in the hands of member states. But as I see the new, I would say, opportunities or challenges to be addressed through the post-Possible Convention is that what was also mentioned by the Commission, that the demographic change of Europe, which is a huge issue and problem, and maybe we don't feel it now, but in 10, 20 years, I think we have to think as visionaries. So this will be a huge problem, and then the rights of older persons definitely will play a very important role for a major part of the population, as much major as today. And for me also what I see as a person or a lawyer as well is the digitalization. You also mentioned artificial intelligence, but the huge digitalization where definitely the older persons can face or are facing problems or obstacles to live their life as they used to. So on substance, this is in my view kind of the major challenges, but of course cooperation between states to set the standards, because standards might be different, is definitely a great challenge ahead of us. And it was also mentioned the CRPD, Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, can serve as a good example. EU is party to the convention, so that's possible that may happen in the future also for this convention. And the EU plays a very much, I would say, vital role also in the coordination of the positions within this convention.
Thank you very much. And Haydun, last word.
Okay, yes, I agree very much with what was said. I would like to add another aspect. I feel a little bit as if we were discussing here in a bubble as well. And I think it would be important to go beyond that bubble, to try to talk to people who are not of the same opinion, who maybe never have heard about a convention or whether older persons need a binding instrument to maintain and protect their rights. And this is an important step, I think, to broaden the basis of what we want. And it takes time. We heard it several times today as well. It takes time. But I think if we are convinced about what we think is needed, then we have to keep it. And we have to not to give up, never give up, if you are convinced of what you think is important.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Heidrun, Drahoslav, Carlos, a big applaud for our panel speakers in this conference. Thank you once again for being with us in person, online. Therefore, I would say that now, because we've got really a couple of minutes, we have prepared another short video with another testimonies. I said it at the beginning of this conference. That's also part of our approach to discussing issues which bring us today, to give the floor to those who are most concerned, those who are not necessarily with us here in person. Therefore, let's listen to, I think we've got a 5 minutes video, so we've got time for it. We can go for this final, let's say, touch before closing the conference.
An ambitious UN Convention on the Rights of Older Persons must include the right to autonomy and to live independently in our own communities. This matters because too often, as people get older, decisions start to be made about them rather than with them.
Che oggi può contare sull'aumentare della propria longevità, ma che deve misurarsi anche con il rischio di incremento della povertà e soprattutto dell'esclusione sociale. Questa convenzione deve guardare ai diritti essenziali per le persone anziane, che guardino a 3 grandi fattori. Innanzitutto la tutela del reddito di queste persone attraverso sistemi pensionistici che garantiscano una vita dignitosa e che rispettino il percorso lavorativo che hanno fatto.
The Convention will be a legal instrument for recognition and empowerment of older women so that they speak out and claim their rights. The Convention should enable older women to gain visibility in human rights. It should help us all to become a true society of all ages, where older women live with dignity, for the well-being of everyone.
For us, an ambitious convention needs to include the full participation of older people. And this means in all situations that concern us, from having a proper place in the decision-making process to transport, care, housing, health, education, digital accessibility, and so on. The convention needs to tackle ageism by affirming that aging is not a crisis to be managed, but a new social landscape to be designed and built together by all generations.
Aging is still too often viewed through a lens of care and dependency rather than rights, participation, and contribution. Without a strong focus on autonomy, older people can lose control over where they live, and how they take part in society. That affects not just independence, but dignity and quality of life.
It is highly important that the Convention lays the standards for the rights of older people, including older women in their huge diversity. It really matters because older women are largely invisible. And this is regardless of the role they play in their professional life, their families, social circles, and communities.
Politiche che guardino alla sanità e alla salute e al contrasto a un'autosufficienza attraverso il rafforzamento delle politiche pubbliche e anche attraverso l'aumento delle risposte alle fragilità e alle cronicità che sono la cifra con le quali ci misuriamo nelle nostre società.
We all live in a multi-generational society. We are all on the same path. Birth through to our last breath. We all need each other. The Convention needs to recognize this.
Human rights do not disappear with age. And still, older women are often faced with gender and age stereotypes and discrimination. So it is crucial and their voices and their lived experiences are heard.
We are living in an era of inevitable demographic aging. We believe that we, the older generation, are in fact pioneering the future for the generations to come. We are experimenting with new ways of living and being useful.
The convention should help us move towards a society where aging is seen as a positive and active stage of life, and where older people are recognized as rights holders, not passive recipients of care. It should change the way society sees aging from something to be managed to something to be valued. It also means recognizing that older people are not all the same. We have different needs, experiences, and preferences, and our voices must be at the center of decisions that affect us.
Thank you very much once again. Well, that brings us sharp on time to the end of this conference. I think you will all agree that was, I would say, another milestone in our internal but also external reflection, because we have invited so many different actors, partners, allies to this discussion. So once again, I would like to thank, first of all of our participants today, our speakers, those who joined us in person, but also online, the testimonies that we heard, of course, to you as participants. I know there is always a lot of, let's say, expectation and this willingness to have conversation. We did not maybe have enough time, but this is, again, an input to our internal reflection. We will continue this in different fora within the Age Platform Europe. So thank you very much for your patience, for your time and contribution. Thank you very much to our interpreters. Without you, of course, we would have not understood each other. So that was, of course, of key importance. And yes, I would say a quarter of a century, right? So now I think we looked back to what we have achieved. There is a huge ambition ahead of us, not only with the convention, that's of course, that was the topic of the discussion for today, but I think there are so many different other let's say, links, connections, dimensions on which we as Age Platform Europe want to have a word to contribute to. Of course, the convention is this, I would say, enormous potential to, someone said this very eloquently, that this would give this frame, something which would unify all different existing, let it be legislations, protocols, charters. We as older people, we sometimes, and not only us, I think we are all a little bit confused and lost sometimes when we look at all this huge spectrum of different policy features, as we can call like this, that exist, but then how they relate to our daily life, how actually, and it was said by the member of the European Parliament, all this discussion is not theoretical. It's actually about issues that concern us, people of all ages, older people today, future generations of older people. So how to make sure that we will all be actually living, continuing to contribute, participate, and be an equal, actually, part of the society. Once again, thank you so much for this extraordinary 25th anniversary conference that I have now the pleasure to close.